Part 3. Xu Wenping was pressured by his mother to get married, so he went on a blind date with a stunning CEO. Though she was 10 years older, her beauty and figure were captivating. The two quickly fell in love, and when they finally got intimate, Xu Wenping noticed a photo in Su Yurou's room. In the photo were two women, Su Yurou and his ex-girlfriend from college. Xu Wenping, darling, who is this woman? Su Yurou, she is my daughter, our daughter. Xu Wenping. Chapter 61. After the incident. Xu Wenping's operation was extremely light, and had nothing in common with the electric shock therapy and stimulating drug therapy he had just used. When the black smoke on his body had almost dissipated, people like Li Jingkang and Nami, who had been staring at the instrument, breathed a sigh of relief. But when they looked at Xu Wenping and Dean Luo, they found that they had never looked at the instrument. The old man suddenly groaned softly, and Xu Wenping turned around and said, "Get a bucket." Li Jingkang acted quickly. He really cared about his father and didn't mind his status at all at this moment. When he saw Xu Wenping lifting up Mr. Li, he immediately half knelt in front of his father, holding the bucket in his hands. The next moment, Xu Wenping struck with a fierce palm. The old man first vomited a mouthful of stagnant air. Then he vomited the food he had eaten today, plus the black medicine that had just been poured into his blood, into the bucket. It was white like porridge, but it smelled terrible. Li Jingkang remained calm, and instead saw his father's face improve. He excitedly asked, "Dad, how are you?" How come I've been holding my breath for so long?" "Hey, Kanga, why are you back?" Seeing his son, the old man frowned and said, "How many times have I told you that you can't return unless it is necessary, not during festivals or holidays? The affairs of the people of Jinhai are not more important than your father's life. Go back and solve the problem. If you don't manage Jinhai well, you will have to work overtime until you die suddenly. Get out." This scene surprised everyone. The old man was really angry, but Li Zhenghao, who had a gloomy face just now, showed a childlike smile, nodded and said, "Okay. Father, as long as you are well. I'll go back. Get lost, you useless brat." Li Zhenghao and his men fled in a panic. Everyone tried to persuade him to stay, and then Dean Luo smiled bitterly and said, "Mr. Li, please save your energy. You walked through the gates of hell and almost went to hell. Can't you let your son come and collect your body?" Elder Li was surprised. After hearing what Dean Luo said, he suddenly understood and nodded deeply. But then he smiled optimistically and said to Xu Wenping, "Then I really have to thank you, Xu boy. Your father saved me when he was young, and you are saving me now. I, an old man, seem to be born with something wrong. What about the fate of your Xu family? Could it be the old man? I helped you guys in my previous life, and you two are here to repay me in this life? Har. Once he recovered his breath, the old man started joking around and his attitude was really good. Xu Wenping was actually pleased to see this. He smiled slowly as he took out the needle and said, "Maybe it's just as you said, Mr. Li. Anyway, I'll prescribe you a dose of medicine from now on. To be honest, apart from this heart blockage and the poison, Mr. Li, you are still very young. You only need to take the medicine for 7 days and you can live another 20 or 30 years. Har, an old man like me still has such a long life? I can't bear to part with it. I have to thank you very much again." After Xu Wenping finished the diagnosis and treatment, he wrote a prescription and turned to hand it to Nami. Seeing her frowning face, Xu Wenping handed it to the old dean and said, "Mr. Luo, I'll have to trouble you to get the medicine." No trouble. Dean Luo had been staring at the prescription for a long time. He snatched it away without waiting for his hand to reach out, and then began to read it as if he had found a treasure. Xu Wenping then turned around and left, walking into their house with Chenpi's parents. He glanced at Nami behind him and chuckled, "Be smarter in the future. I'll write you a notebook, you should read it more often. If my parents are not feeling well in the future, don't use that bad method." Nami nodded timidly, blushing and said, "Don't worry, master, Nami will definitely study hard and live up to your high expectations." Mr. Li at the back rested for a while, and when he stood up, he felt comfortable all over. He said with a smile, "You know what, this kid's stuff is really useful. I walk as light as a swallow." Dean Luo went downstairs to get the medicine. After returning home, Mr. Li stroked his chin and called his son. "Dad, how are you feeling?" Old Li raised his lips, smiled faintly, and said softly, "I'm sorry, kid, I was wrong about you today. To be honest, I really have to rely on you to take care of me in my old age." He he. Dad, you said that again. The strong Li Jinkang answered at this moment, but he looked like he was happy and showing off after being praised. Mr. Li smiled and said, "Okay, I won't disturb you from your work. I heard from that kid just now that I'm in good health and can live another 20 to 30 years. You kid, you better pay attention. I can't afford to punish you for a few more years." Har har. Then I'll borrow his good words. "Father, I hope you live a long life." Mr. Li didn't want to listen to his son's flattering words, so he hung up the phone immediately, threw the phone aside, and said to the bodyguard beside him, "Go and get me some information about the guy just now." "Yes, Mr. Li." Mr. Li seemed to be retired and unemployed at home, but he seemed to have a lot of energy in his hands. Within a few minutes, the bodyguard came over with a few thin pages of information. Mr. Li stood up and put on his reading glasses. He scanned the pages line by line, nodded slightly from time to time, and then frowned and said, "What happened a few days ago? Is the Dahao Group written on it? The Dahao Group in Jinhai City?" "Yes, Mr. Li. There is only one Dahao in Jinhai City." The bodyguard nodded slightly. The old man grinned and said, "Every generation has its own talented people. This kid is on the path of a great hero, right?" The bodyguard didn't dare to speak. Old Li said slowly, "Although my son has some awareness, the Li family still lacks the temperament of decisiveness. This Xu family, his father saved me, and now he has formed this relationship with me. Can I take advantage of the situation and do something to add icing on the cake?" The bodyguard didn't even dare to speak. "Old man, you once could decide the life and death of millions of people with just a single word. Who dares to respond to this?" Mr. Li stroked his chin, and seemed to get more and more excited the more he thought about it. Finally, he murmured to himself, "I, Mr. Li, have always been a helper in need, never the icing on the cake. Since the young man has such an extraordinary temperament, we can think of starting from somewhere else." Mr. Li talked for a long time and finally asked a question that the bodyguard dared to answer. "Is my little granddaughter Junlan coming back from studying abroad soon?" "Yes, Mr. Li. He, a girl should get married when she grows up. There's no point in her staying in our Li family. Let's find her a son-in-law and send her away." Mr. Li, who was lying down, looked contented. Chapter 62. Xu Yu asks for help. In fact, just when Mr. Li got this result, Li Jinkang also got Xu Wenping's information in the Jinhai building, in the municipal office. He stroked his chin and looked at it for a few times, his eyes fluttering, and then he whispered to his assistant, "This Dahao Group is also an important private leading enterprise in our Jinhai city, right?" The assistant nodded gently and said, "Yes, Dahao Group was established very early. It was already a good company before you took office. Their profits are stable. Although they are involved in a wide range of businesses, their main business has always been the development projects of the former Deputy District Master of Jinhai Central District. It may take some time to complete. Besides, they don't have anything else to do." "No." The assistant glanced at Li Jinkang. With Li Jinkang's political resources, he would probably not stay in the position of mayor of Jinhai City for too long. Therefore, his focus has always been on cleaning up the internal situation, suppressing crime and supporting the masses, adopting a meticulous management approach. As for the matter of creating GDP for Jinhai City, Li Jinkang intended to leave some room for the next person in charge, so he didn't ask too much. At this moment, when he mentioned it, the assistant naturally didn't dare to say more. Li Jinkang pondered for a moment, then smiled and said, "It seems that our Jinhai city is wasting a lot of money. The biggest advantage of Xu Wenping is that he is young." After a little thought, Li Jinkang called Xu Wenping. Exclamation point. Xu Wenping was a little surprised when he answered the phone. Before he could ask any questions, he heard Li Jinkang speak gently, "Wenping. I'm Li Jinkang. I have to thank you for what happened to the old man today." "Mr. Li." Even Xu Wenping felt a little nervous when he heard the voice over there. After all, Li Jinkang's position was too high. Xu Wenping's heart was beating. "Should I call her myself?" "No, that's not right. Forget it, just listen to what he has to say." It was just a little turbulence, and Xu Wenping calmed down. Although he had lived 2 lives and it was the first time for him to deal with such a high-level leader, when he thought about it carefully, with the system in his hands, which leader could compare to him? There's no need to talk about thanks, Mr. Li, didn't we already talk about this face to face? Xu Wenping said softly. Yes, yes, yes. Li Jinkang nodded gently and said, that's right. After all, we are neighbors now, both inside and outside the door. I hope you can take care of my old man's health. Besides, I have heard a little about the Dehao group. Xu Wenping looked surprised. Li Jinkang said very gently, here's what I think. I'll ask my assistant to arrange a time for me to come out and have a simple meal. First, it will allow me to express my gratitude. Second, I, Li Jinkang, have some respect in Jinhai City. After this meal, it will be easier for you to do things in the future. Li Jinkang's olive branch also surprised Xu Wenping. With a smile on his face, he nodded and said, thank you very much, Mr. Li. Okay, you decide the time, and I'll host you then. Li Jinkang hung up the phone, and Xu Wenping couldn't help but smile. When treating the patient today, he was actually able to realize the strength of the Li father and son, but with Xu Wenping's character, he would not do anything to humble himself even if it was profitable. But at this moment, Li Jinkang called personally. Xu Wenping was certainly not the kind of person who would take advantage of others' kindness. He sat in this position and had such a powerful background. If someone wanted to invite him to dinner, the queue would probably stretch from the provincial capital to the high seas. All they need to do is show up for dinner once, and all future projects of the Emgrand Group will surely go smoothly and get the green light. Brother, what are you thinking about? Why are you laughing so happily? At this moment Chenpi happened to come over, sat down on the sofa, took out a cigarette and handed it to me. Nothing. Xu Wenping shook his head, then looked towards the small courtyard not far away and said, have my parents made arrangements? I finished cleaning it. My uncle and aunt are both very satisfied. Oh, this villa is so beautiful. I must build one for myself in the future. Xu Wenping smiled and patted Chenpi on the shoulder, saying, don't worry, there will be a chance. Okay, brother. If there's nothing else, I'll leave first. And then I thought about it and decided to let Flathead stay here. He's the little brother who first met me back then. You've met him, brother. He knows all the uncles and aunts. If the uncles and aunts need anything, he can be their driver. I've taught him a few moves, and is also a ruthless person. If anything happens, he can handle it. The servants in the courtyard only care about money and face, and have no human feelings. I don't trust them. Chen Pai's eyes flashed with ruthlessness and caution at the same time. Xu Wenping was initially bored, but suddenly he reacted and stroked his chin, thinking, well, this decision is in place. Xu Wenping's identity changed so quickly that he had not yet reacted. As the saying goes, an innocent man is guilty unless he possesses a treasure. Now that his relationships have expanded, it is indeed necessary to make such an arrangement. After thinking for a while, Xu Wenping smiled at Chen Pai and said, okay, let's do this. I'll draw a picture book when I'm done. I know a few sets of boxing techniques and I'll email them to you. If you like to practice them, go ahead and play. Chen Pai's eyes lit up and he said, that's great. But don't let it be another one that you can learn in one go, that's boring. Good. Looking at Chenpi's back, Xu Wenping smiled slightly. It is difficult to support oneself alone, and having brothers around to care for you can indeed help you to find out the gaps and notice some details that you cannot see. Although Chen Pai has been an expert in boxing and kicking since he was young and was familiar with all the taekwondo moves when he was 3 or 5 years old, I think the martial arts he knows now are enough for Chen Pai to learn for half his lifetime, right? At this time, it was getting dark, and when Xu Wenping went to the small courtyard next door, he saw that his parents had already gone to bed. They had the habit of taking a nap, and after a busy day today, they were naturally a little tired. Xu Wenping wrote a medical manuscript for Nami, and then copied the martial arts atlas, teaching Chenpi Xingyiquan and Taihekan, and then he planned to take a rest. But as soon as I lay down on the bed, my cell phone rang. Xu Wenping thought it was a message from Su Yurou, but when he picked it up, he found it was from Yu Youling. Wenping, where are you? I'm at the Howard Plaza Hotel for a business dinner. This client is so strange. I'm a little scared. Xu Wenping was slightly surprised, and after thinking for a while, he replied, what's strange? Are you discussing a project outside? Xu Wenping waited for a long time, but Yu Youling didn't respond. After waiting for more than half an hour, there was still no response. Xu Wenping frowned and got up from the bed. Chapter 63, Extremely Evil. Howard Johnson Hotel. Although the box was large, there were only 4 people sitting inside at this moment. Yu Youling had just put down her phone when the young man with slicked back hair and wearing a suit sitting in the main seat came over with his arm around her. Hey! Manager Yu! We should just concentrate on drinking, why are you playing with your phone? Come on, let me toast you another glass. I think this cooperation with our general manager Liu will be very promising. With this project, will I have to call you Minister Yu from now on? Huh? Har ha har har. Yu Youling obviously didn't want to drink, but right next to her, a female employee who was wearing the same Dehao group uniform as her, but much less pretty, smiled softly and said, "It's okay, Manager Yu. That's how we talk about projects. You just got promoted and took over. Mr. Liu has such a big project, we should still celebrate." Ever since the last minister stepped down, their department has had a new minister, and the process was naturally pushed up, from minister, director, to manager, but it was Yu Youling, a small clerk who had never even been a team leader, who was put in charge. He made a double jump without even completing the internship period. Although Yu Youling was happy, she was also a little worried because she knew that Xu Wenping's power was behind it. At this moment, if Yu Youling was just a salesperson, she would simply not drink a glass of wine and turn around and leave. After all, she also felt that the atmosphere was a bit weird. But when she thought of Xu Wenping and the strong look of the girl Xu Wenping brought, Yu Youling couldn't help but feel a little dissatisfied. She smiled lightly, raised her glass and said, "Happy cooperation." The wine was poured into the glass, and Yu Youling drank it all in one gulp. The remaining 3 people looked at each other, and they all felt a sense of success. "How are you, Manager Yu, are you okay?" Mr. Liu was trying to persuade Yu gently and courteously, and was about to make his move, but this glass of wine seemed different from ordinary wine. Although it still gave a burning sensation when it entered the stomach, the after effect seemed to be very strong. Yu was still sober at a young age, but he immediately felt dizzy and felt his head rushing to his head. My whole body was about to go limp. In a daze, he seemed to finally hear the cruel laughter of several people around him. Ahahaha. Xiao Li, you are really good at what you do. Who should I give the project to? I won't do it myself. Since your company has such a beautiful manager, of course I have to cooperate with you. Hee hee. It's a pity, Mr. Liu, that you don't think highly of my looks. When it comes to posture, I'm afraid I'm much better than our manager Liu. The younger brother accompanying Mr. Liu took the opportunity to touch the shoulder of the employee Xiao Li and said with a chuckle, "Don't be afraid, if you feel itchy, I will scratch you. Can we cooperate successfully? Is most of it due to you, Miss Li? Hate tilde. Okay, then just follow me. I'll take Manager Yu to their hotel, and after I check in a room, you two can come up." Ahahaha. Several people laughed disgustingly. Yu Youling felt extremely miserable. He wanted to turn over, but he had no strength left. Before he lost consciousness, he suddenly heard a loud bang. The door of the hotel was opened. It was kicked open. "Wenping, is that you?" Thinking of this, Yu Youling lost consciousness. The door of the hotel was kicked open, and the 3 people present were startled. At this moment, Xiao Li was about to help Yu Youling get up, but when he saw the cold-faced person at the door, Xiao Li was dumbfounded, and his teeth trembled a little as he said, "Assistant GAO. Assistant GAO." The first person to come was not Xu Wenping. Seeing the two Mr. Liu's expressions change slightly, Xiao Li quickly grinned and said, "This is our chairman's assistant and president's assistant, Mr. GAO. Oh my god. I was so scared. It turned out to be an assistant. I thought it was Jiang Yuming himself." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw the high wall make way for Jiang Yuming, who was in a suit, walking with trembling, his face as fierce as a demon, and he almost flew in and kicked General Manager Liu of the Central Committee in the stomach. After kicking him to the ground with the bench, Jiang Yuming's eyes also trembled and his look was crazy, like a gentleman's villain. Fuck you. I'm just Jiang Yuming, but I scared you, a piece of shit, to death. When I was hurting your grandpa Jiang, why didn't you know to tell me in advance? Jiang. President Jiang. Jiang Yuming was so angry that his mouth was almost crooked. He turned his head and took a glance, then picked up a plate of braised fish on the table and covered Mr. Liu's face with it. The fish bone pierced into Mr. Liu's face fiercely, and Jiang Yueming's clothes were splashed with oil. He was still not satisfied, and swung the plate and shook it a few times. Knowing that the ceramic dish was smashed into pieces, Mr. Liu was already knocked unconscious, and the boy next to him was also trembling. Jiang. President Jiang, isn't he just a small employee? Our boss has been working with you for so long, it shouldn't be that bad. He, Tui Tilder. The boy was about to argue when Jiang Yuming spat a mouthful of phlegm in his mouth. He then threw the bottle and made a starry sky on his head. He covered his head and said, "You are all fucking stupid. Can't you have a limit? Damn, a little intern was promoted twice. I almost put the girl on my desk and said she was someone I couldn't afford to offend. Why can't you see it? Gao Chiang. Gao Chiang." Jiang Yuming was indeed furious. He shouted and saw that no one responded, so he turned around with a ferocious expression. Seeing Gao Chiang lowering his head and keeping silent, Jiang Yueming's eyes changed from anger to confusion, and then to panic. Seeing Xu Wenping calmly helping Yu Youling up, Jiang Yuming trembled all over and immediately knelt on the ground, saying in panic, "Chairman, Yuming is not doing his job well. Get up, get up." Xu Wenping spoke calmly. Seeing Jiang Yuming still kneeling, he couldn't help but smile bitterly and rolled his eyes. "You kid, didn't you see I was holding the girl? Can you raise your hands to hold you up? What do you mean by malpractice? Nothing happened." Although Xu Wenping was also furious, when he saw how scared Jiang Yuming was, he knew that Jiang Yuming didn't mean it, so his anger subsided by half, and he was actually a little happy about Jiang Yueming's loyalty. "It's rude to kneel again." Jiang Yuming raised his head and saw that Xu Wenping's expression was gentle, without any grudge. Instead, he seemed to like him even more. Jiang Yuming breathed a sigh of relief. Xu Wen said calmly, "It doesn't matter, Yuming. I've only been in charge of the group for a few days. In the future, just turn down projects like this one. If you can take a broader path, the future of our Dahao group will be even greater. Yes, Yuming will teach you." Chapter 64 Beautiful Moments. Xu Wenping lifted Yu Youling up with both hands. Seeing Jiang Yuming and Gao Chiang wanted to see her off, he waved his hand to refuse and said in a hissing voice, "Xiao Gao, go downstairs and get me a room. I'll take her upstairs to sleep." At this moment, it was unclear whether Yu Youling had really fainted or was still conscious. She kept pushing him out with her hands and was mumbling something in her mouth. After seeing Xu Wenping going upstairs, Jiang Yuming stood up and walked to the two people next to him. Seeing Jiang Yuming kneeling down, the shock to Mr. Liu and the person beside him was probably greater than the fact that Jiang Yuming beat them. After all, to Jiang Yuming, they were also minions. "The beating I received today was in vain. But who could be the person who could scare Jiang Yuming so much that he kneels down?" Jiang Yuming leaned close to their ears and said quietly, "Do you know the inland river of Jinhai? The water of Jinjiang is not only clear, but also very close to the sea. Otherwise, I heard that you two will jump into Jinjiang tomorrow. Or I'll send your whole family out to sea for a trip." After saying that, Jiang Yuming turned and left. The two bosses looked pale. They could never imagine that it was just a premeditated attack on an employee of the company. They had done this kind of thing dozens of times, if not 100 times. "Will you lose your life?" Xu Wenping put what just happened behind him, and instead felt a little sigh and a little bit of entanglement in his heart. For a beauty like Yu Youling who can attract people's attention wherever she goes, it seems that it is only a matter of time before she falls for a group like Dahao. Xu Wenping is not a savior, therefore, today is calm. The reason why he repeatedly rescued Yu Youling was not because of her beauty, but one of the main reasons was because of the existence of the system. "Because this treasure girl gave me a great gift from the system, and we had contact several times afterwards, so there was some personal affection between us. Even if we can't be called partners, at least we are friends." Until he was carried into their hotel, Yu Youling was still trying her best to refuse. If he had not been in strong body, he would have held Yu Youling tightly and she would have probably become restless. After closing the door, Xu Wenping put her on the bed. Yu Youling's breathing became heavy, and a faint pink appeared from head to toe. She seemed to be trying her best to suppress her emotions, and shook her head violently, trying to wake herself up. Little fish, Xu Wenping called out softly twice. Yu Youling moved suddenly, her eyes stayed on Xu Wenping's face for a moment, and there seemed to be a flash of clarity in her eyes. She mumbled something in her mouth, and finally uttered two words that Xu Wenping could understand. Wenping. R tilde tilde. As soon as she finished speaking, a long moan came from Yu Youling's throat. Then, she seemed to be relieved and began to rub her whole body randomly. This is. At first Xu Wenping didn't pay much attention to it. In fact, it was mainly because Yu Youling suppressed him too well. Her self-defense that always pushed him away made Xu Wenping think that Yu Youling might be drunk. At this moment, Yu Youling took off all her disguises after seeing Xu Wenping. Xu Wenping's face changed drastically. He then went up to feel Yu Youling's pulse, and his face turned black. Fuck, Chun Yao. You bastard. As soon as Xu Wenping opened his mouth, Yu Youling's arms immediately wrapped around him and then hooked him like an octopus. Her heavy breathing echoed in Xu Wenping's ears like syllables, fascinating. The anger in Xu Wenping's stomach was instantly aroused. Yu Youling is the pure type. She has a pair of dimples when she smiles. Just looking at her face, she gives people the fragrance of a lotus that is pure and untainted. However, her hot body makes her tend to develop in the direction of purity. At this moment, her graceful figure blossomed, but she thrust her chest forward. No matter how finely made the white shirt was, the buttons on the chest could not support it, and it broke onto Xu Wenping's face. The next moment, a suffocating, warm, and sweet breath rushed towards Xu Wenping's face. Wenping, I feel so uncomfortable, I need you? Help me. Xu Wenping's mind was also full of thoughts. If the drug had just been taken, Xu Wenping could still try to stimulate the medicinal properties, but at this time, after being catalyzed by alcohol, the drug had already entered Yu Youling's nerves. Although it can be forced out, it will more or less cause harm to Youling's body. Chun medicine is not a medicine. Strictly speaking, it is just a nerve stimulation. Therefore, Yu Youling was able to rely on her willpower to stay sober and subconsciously reject it when she first took it. Who can tolerate this? Just at this moment, the damn system suddenly rang. Ding, their host has been detected to be in a very entangled state of mind. The system has released a choice. 1. Remain calm even when a beautiful woman is around. Imitate the saints in the books and learn to remain calm even when a beautiful woman is around. Isn't that a bit inhumane? Reward, a set of the 4 books and 5 classics. 2. Make it when necessary. Is it just love at this moment? Even for Yu Youling's health, we should sacrifice our own interests to help Yu Youling survive this crisis. Reward, luxury yacht. Never mind, just detoxify. The release of the system was undoubtedly the last straw that broke the camel's back. Xu Wenping didn't want to persist. Under the combined efforts of Yu Youling's hands and feet, Xu Wenping finally succumbed. The hands that were tightly holding his belt let go, and Yu Youling's hands were as skillful as lotus flowers, and they untied them in one go. Xu Wenping's big hands also began to move up and down, as if opening a door, and Yu Youling's crisp screams bloomed in the room. What happened next is easy to explain. It happened that the two armies were facing each other, there were accidental firings, waves of excitement, and a lot of time was wasted. It also seemed like Zilong's self-introduction, a flash of cold light came first, and then the gun shot out like a dragon. After a commotion, Yu Youling was naturally sweating profusely, but Xu Wenping was secretly surprised. After a round of attacks, he finally couldn't bear it anymore and surrendered. The two hugged each other, and the smell of hormones spread around them. Yu Youling's beautiful eyes flickered, but in the end she was so embarrassed that she got up and took a shower. Xu Wenping was already tired, and closed his eyes in a daze. He didn't know what time it was, but he felt a warm fragrance in his arms. It was Yu Youling who gently placed her body in Xu Wenping's arms. It was a beautiful moment, and they fell asleep in each other's arms. Chapter 65, Anxiety. Sleep till dawn. The faint light from outside the window woke Xu Wenping up from his dream. When he opened his eyes, he saw a soft face and gentle breathing. Xu Wenping wanted to pull his hand out gently, but he saw Yu Youling opened her eyes. Their eyes met, and Yu Youling's face turned slightly red again. Xu Wenping didn't know what to say, so he just laughed and said, Xiaoyu, well. Yu Youling interrupted him and asked the first question, which made Xu Wenping feel a little bit at a loss. Just when he was about to answer, he heard Yu Youling say, "It's okay. Last night was not your fault. I don't need you to be responsible." Xu Wenping calmed down for a moment, then said gently, do you want to get up and have breakfast?" As she spoke, Yu Youling's voice became thinner and thinner, and she said, "My legs are sore." Hearing this, Xu Wenping became embarrassed instead. He hurriedly lifted the quilt and tried to help her. However, because he used too much force, a slender body suddenly appeared in front of him, which almost aroused Xu Wenping's interest again. But looking towards the bed where there was turmoil last night, a slight blush was reflected on the white sheets. Only then did Xu Wenping hurriedly help Yu Youling up. While the latter was taking a shower, Xu Wenping went downstairs to order breakfast. The two of them took a bite, and at this time, Xu Wenping's phone rang. When Xu Wenping picked it up, he felt a little scared, because the call was from Su Yurou, and there were already 2 missed calls. He probably didn't hear the call last night because he was too noisy. Seeing the nervousness in Xu Wenping's eyes, Yu Youling's loneliness also flashed across her eyes. She waited until the phone stopped ringing before she asked softly, "Is it your girlfriend calling?" Xu Wenping nodded reluctantly. "Is that the girl I saw that day?" "Right." Yu Youling suddenly smiled gently and said, "That's good. Although I said some unpleasant things that day, I feel that you two are a good match. That sister has a very good temperament. I'm afraid it will take me a long time to learn from her." Xu Wenping suddenly felt that no matter what he said, it would be wrong. Yu Youling smiled beautifully. The two of them went downstairs together without much conversation. When they reached the underground parking lot, Yu Youling whispered, "Can I trouble you again to take me home?" The car passed through the bustling city and arrived at the urban village. It braked and stopped under a dilapidated building. Yu Youling seemed to have said nothing, but also seemed to have said everything. Before leaving, Yu Youling hugged Xu Wenping tightly, then went back upstairs without even turning around to look at him again, because she was already crying all over the place. Ding! In order not to disturb the host's mood, the system's reward reminder is a little late. The Shark cruise ship has been awarded and is currently docked at the commercial port number 1 in the Binhai district. The industry information has been notified to the housekeeper Nami. The internal item list has been adjusted. If you want to make personalized choices, please feel free to add them. Xu Wenping was slightly stunned. Looking at Yu Youling's back just now, he was indeed filled with mixed emotions. This incident happened too abruptly. Xu Wenping is not a treacherous person, but with Su Yurou in front of him, if Yu Youling wants a status, he really couldn't give. He felt a little confused, but fortunately the system prompt sound allowed Xu Wenping to sort out his thoughts. At this moment, a 3-dimensional image of a cruise ship also appeared in the system space. This is not a small yacht that can only accommodate 3 or 5 people. This big guy is probably enough to host a large business banquet, right? Sure enough, the products produced by the system must be high quality. This was Xu Wenping's first time to come into contact with a cruise ship, so he didn't make any personalized additions. When he saw Nami's report, he just agreed. While walking home, Xu Wenping nervously called Su Yurou. "Yawn. Hey, Yurou." Xu Wenping was afraid that Su Yurou's thunderous scolding would ruin all his business in the past few days. Unexpectedly, Su Yurou yawned after answering the phone and said softly, "Were you too tired yesterday? I called you but you didn't answer." "Yeah, just woke up." Su Yurou nodded gently and said, "I heard something happened to you last night, so I didn't go there and slept at home. How is it? Is the sick old man okay?" Xu Wenping felt relieved and said with a smile, "Don't worry. With your husband's ability, it should be easy to deal with. How about you? How did you solve the company's problems?" Talking about this, Su Yurou became a little happier and said with a smile, "It's perfect. Our new products and the products co-branded with the Emgrand Group will be launched at the same time. And it has also been recognized by the leaders. From now on," Su Yurou said gently, "I can be more free and spend more time with you." "Good." Xu Wenping smiled and said, "Then I'll get up and come over." "No, I've already packed. I plan to go to the market to buy some things. You just moved into your new home, so we can have a meal with your uncle and aunt. I'll cook today." "Humph. Don't think that you are the only one who is good at cooking. My cooking skills are not vegetarian either." At this time, Xu Wenping was already downstairs. Hearing the pulsating sound of high heels and seeing Su Yurou getting off the elevator from afar, Xu Wenping's heart skipped a beat and he quickly turned the steering wheel and headed towards the villa. "Good job. If we meet this, I don't know what lie to tell." When Xu Wenping arrived at the villa, the house seemed very quiet. His father and mother were not at home. When asked, Nami replied, "My uncle went to the neighbor across the street and said he wanted to apologize to his old boss. My aunt asked the flat-headed brother to take her home to get something. She was thinking about opening a shop at the back door of the courtyard. She said there was not even a vegetable seller in this villa area." "Did you ask me?" "No." Xu Wenping breathed a sigh of relief, but then he was confused again. What's going on? Now you don't even care about your son. Chapter 66 Shameless Old Li. Dad came back dejected. When Xu Wenping asked about it, he rolled his eyes and said, "This time I have offended my old boss." Before he could say anything, he saw the old leader walking in with his hands behind his back. Xu Xunyan's eyes lit up, and he immediately rushed up and said, "Old leader, have you forgiven me?" Snort. Old Li snorted coldly and said, "The character of a chess player is like the character of a person. I have nothing to say to an old fellow like you. I'm here to find Xiao Xiaoshu." "Where is Xiao Xiaoshu?" "Mr. Li, Xiao Xiaoshu is here." Mr. Li smiled and waved to the bodyguard behind him, and handed a bag to Xu Wenping. Xu Wenping took it with surprise and saw 4 packs of cigarettes inside. It has never been seen on the market. It is a noble blue color with the national emblem painted on it and no brand name. "Mr. Li, what are you doing?" Sit down, sit down." Old Li sat down in the entertainment hall and smiled at Xu Wenping, saying, "The way of the world is to treat each other with sincerity, cigarettes for cigarettes and tea for tea. I don't know if you, Xiao Xiaoshu, drink or not, but I saw you light a cigarette. I don't smoke, and I'm putting this thing at the bottom of the box. Is it going to go into the coffin with me? Anyway, you should not imitate some people and just play bad chess." Xu Wenping looked embarrassed. But it must be said that Mr. Li was very capable. When he gave Xu Wenping a gift, he had no reason to refuse. As a result, a relationship was naturally established. Mr. Xu had been turned away here, and when he saw his son being favored by his old leader, he was even more angry. At this moment, my mother came back, carrying a bag of blue vegetables, and asked softly when she passed by, "Where is Yurou?" "Mom, I think you should ask me." "What do you have to ask?" Mom rolled her eyes. Xu Wenping was a little speechless, and said, "Just like you, he went to buy groceries and said he would come to cook for you." "Really?" Mom's eyes lit up and she said with a grin, "What a nice daughter-in-law." Mr. Li next to him listened with a flickering look on his face, as if he also understood something. "I'll cook too." Xu Wenping's father also walked away, waving his hands. The old man and the young man sat opposite each other. Xu Wenping looked at the old man and said, "Grandpa Li, how about we play a game of chess?" "Meeting? I understand a little bit. Just what I want." The two of them came to the chessboard. Xu Wenping didn't think much about it. He was rewarded for his expertise in chess 2 days ago. At this moment, looking at these pieces, he knew everything. At least there should be a master level, right? Anyway, Mr. Li is sitting here doing nothing else, so why not play chess to ease the awkwardness? Mr. Li sat down and arranged his troops, then began to speak with a hint of meaning. Playing chess is like 2 armies facing off, but each holding 1 piece, which is more like the dynamics of life. So if you regret playing chess, like your father did, it is not the behavior of a gentleman. You must know that you must judge the situation and adapt to human nature. Only then can you achieve great things and cover the world. You go first with red. Xu Wenping nodded slightly. Mr. Li wanted to let him go first. Although he was not unwilling to do so, he also raised a hand of the border scholar and smiled slightly. "Let him take it first, but don't fight for it." Mr. Li nodded implicitly and said, "Young man, you are indeed still very capable, but if you are not promoted, you may not be my opponent." "Xiao Xiaoshu, I just heard from your mom that you already have a partner. Are you married?" The two began to arrange the dishes and the formation. Li Lao was calm and began to ask other questions. Xu Wenping smiled and nodded, saying, "We plan to get married nearby." "With your talent, don't you think it's a bit abrupt? Have you ever thought about choosing someone who is equally matched?" Xu Wenping was surprised. He didn't expect that Mr. Li would be the matchmaker. However, he still smiled calmly and said, "A man who has shared his hardships with his wife should not be divorced." "Grandpa Li, don't you understand such a simple truth?" "General." Mr. Li frowned slightly and stepped forward to greet the general. Xu Wenping gently flew the elephant to resolve the embarrassment. "Another check." Xu Wenping is a member of the branch. What if I continue? Xu Wenping looked at Mr. Li above him, slightly surprised for a moment, thought for a moment, and then smiled bitterly. Mr. Li is indeed a great chess player, I am not as good as him. Old Master Li smiled slightly, stroked his beard and stared at the chessboard, nodding with satisfaction, but when his eyebrows tilted to one side, his expression suddenly changed. He raised his head and looked at Xu Wenping. Xu Wenping scratched his head and asked strangely, "What's wrong?" Har har har. Mr. Li suddenly laughed and said, "I realize that I still underestimated your ability. At the beginning of the game, you recognized the pieces but not the advance. You were cautious but not aggressive, and reserved but not revealing. In the end, I, an old man, was upset, but you were willing to retreat bravely and admit defeat. You were humble and modest, and resolved disputes." Xu Wenping was slightly stunned, then he smiled implicitly. The old man was very good at chess, and he could see clearly after reviewing the game that Xu Wenping had moved his chariot in the corner to occupy the position of the pawn. He had the murderous intention of making a double chariot move, but he did not use it until the boss admitted defeat. Because the old man was upset and angry. The chess game was lost, but Karen won. The old man waved his hand and said, "No more, the ones under this brand are not interesting at all, they are not even on the same level. Let's talk about something else." Just at this moment, Su Yurou came over with a smile on her face, carrying 2 bags of vegetables. Seeing Xu Wenping playing chess with the old man, she smiled through the window and did not disturb them. Unexpectedly, at this time, the old man shouted loudly, "I have a granddaughter, who is not bad in appearance and talent. I have decided to marry her to you, but if you want her to be the boss or the concubine, I will not interfere." Su Yurou's smile froze at the corner of her mouth. Xu Wenping's mouth twitched immediately, and he said hurriedly, "Old man, why don't you cheat when playing chess, but cheat when being a person? What granddaughter or not, and you're talking about it when my wife is here." "I don't care." Mr. Li said complacently, "Since you already have a wife, why don't you let my granddaughter be your mistress?" "Old man, you didn't push your granddaughter into the fire pit, did you? Besides, I haven't even seen your granddaughter, and she won't like me." "She likes it." The old man spoke confidently. Without waiting for Xu Wenping to continue arguing with him, he suddenly raised his hand and said, "Stop talking, stop talking. I don't want to talk to you, kid. I'm going to go into the house and talk to my niece and his wife. You 2 youngsters, go downstairs and cook. I'll eat here tonight." Seeing his familiarity, Xu Wenping didn't care who he was. He was angry and shouted, "Old man, I tell you, I don't care what kind of leader you are. If you are disrespectful to your elders, I, Xu, will not give you face." The bodyguard turned around with a cold face, and Xu Wenping asked wildly, "What are you looking at? What does it have to do with you?" At this moment, Mr. Li suddenly pinched his chin and said softly, "If you hit me, I will lie down and blackmail you." Lululu. Chapter 67 Yacht Trip Plan! Exclamation point. Xu Wenping clenched his fists for a long time, and really found that he had no way to deal with this old man, so he let him walk away, calling Xu Wenping's mother niece-in-law. Turning to look at Su Yurou, Xu Wenping immediately raised 3 fingers and said, "Yurou, I send." Before she could say anything, Su Yurou's jade hand pinched 3 fingers and pressed them down. She rolled her eyes and said, "You have a childish temper. Sister, do I need you to swear an oath to guarantee me?" Then he said rationally, "The old man was once in a high position and has great power. Now he has many students all over the world and has extraordinary influence. Marrying his granddaughter will be a step forward in your life. I have never seen it, not at all." "I know." Su Yurou gently grabbed Xu Wenping's hand, handed him a basket of vegetables, and said, "It's enough for me to know that you like me. In this world, when many forces are stirring up trouble, what does a name mean? The most important thing is that we love each other. Let's go, let's make dumplings today." Xu Wenping could only smile bitterly when he heard this. Su Yurou was sometimes so sensible that it made people feel distressed. However, underneath this calmness, Xu Wenping vaguely felt that the soul hidden in Su Yurou's body might be much stronger than he imagined. The kitchen was very big, but with the 2 of them here, many chefs had to go back to rest. Perhaps they were bored sitting in the house, so Xu Wenping's parents and the old man came over soon. Some were peeling garlic, some were rolling dough, and some were making dumplings. "Oh. I haven't felt this atmosphere for many years." Xu Xinian sighed slightly. Old Li rolled his eyes and said, okay, I don't care about these things any more than you do. Oh. I remember the last time I made dumplings by myself, it was last time. Old leader. I noticed that you talk more after you retired. Shut up. Making dumplings is a delicate job, and what everyone was looking for at this moment was this kind of slow time spent together. Therefore, no one felt anxious, and by the time they ate the dumplings, it was already afternoon. Su Yurou graciously passed the dipping sauce to the elders. Although she was targeted by Old Lee several times, she was not angry at all. Seeing Su Yurou's attitude, Old Lee couldn't help but nodded and said, "Little girl. You are indeed a great girl. From your words, I can see that you are more capable than my granddaughter." "Thank you for your praise, old man." Seeing Su Yurou's chuckle, the old man chuckled and said, "This is not an exaggeration. Even if you are in the homes of those old guys above, you can't find many descendants like you. But as an old man, I have only known how to move forward since I was young, not how to retreat." Su Yurou was naturally speechless about this. Old Lee stood up with his hands behind his back, wiped the corners of his mouth with a smile, and said, "Okay, now that you have eaten and drunk enough, I, an old man, will not disturb your family reunion." Seeing that Mr. Lee was about to leave, everyone stood up to see him off. However, since he was in good health, the old man's legs and feet were very fast. He walked out with big strides and shouted, "Don't do those empty formalities inside and outside the door." After everyone finished eating and drinking, they collected the dishes. The parents turned back to the courtyard, while Xu Wenping and Su Yurou sat in the living room. When their eyes met, Xu Wenping sighed softly, "There's really nothing we can do about that old man Lee." Su Yurou just smiled gently. Although Su Yurou was very generous, Xu Wenping was confused about the sensitive issue raised by Lao Li. After raising his eyebrows for a moment, he asked in a low voice, "By the way, Yurou, how many days do you plan to rest?" "At least a week. Anyway, there is nothing important happening in the company recently." Looking at Xu Wenping's eyes, Su Yurou seemed to realize the next sentence Xu Wenping was going to mention, and her face was a little shy. Xu Wenping's eyes lit up immediately, and he said, "There's enough time, Yurou, why don't we go out to sea for a while, feel the sunshine and the ocean, and avoid being disturbed by that old man Lee?" Su Yurou's cheeks blushed slightly, and she nodded gently, "I'll listen to you." The sun and the sea, it sounds very confusing, and since it was her boyfriend who brought it up, Su Yurou naturally had no reason to refuse. "Okay, wait a moment." Xu Wenping rang the bell in the communications room, and just a moment later, he saw Nami walking towards him. "Master, mistress." Compared to yesterday's meeting, Nami was a little more respectful today and maintained a good attitude towards Su Yurou. She said softly, "Do you have any instructions?" "Nami, please help me communicate with the shark. I plan to go out to sea with my wife and find a route with better scenery." Nami's eyes flashed with surprise, and then she smiled softly, "Of course, no problem. Master, Nami just received a call from a group that wanted to book a trip on the shark today. Nami suggested that we rent out the ordinary area. The income we get will be able to support the operation of the shark and make a small profit." "Rent?" Seeing Nami's gentle smile, Xu Wenping was slightly surprised. He didn't want to be disturbed on this trip. He was about to refuse when Nami smiled and said, "Yes, master. The Shark is the only large luxury cruise ship in the city that can carry thousands of people. Even if it's just the VIP area, there is still a lot of space. The group that has booked this trip is a team-building gathering of the entertainment industry's top stars. Master, you may be able to see some good performances in the VIP area to relieve the boredom of the trip." Xu Wenping was slightly stunned, then he curled up the corners of his mouth and smiled. What a great relationship, and there's a free performance to watch. However, he admitted that although he could see 3D modeling in the system space, Xu Wenping always believed that the Shark was just a small cruise ship. If it was an extra-large luxury cruise ship that could accommodate thousands of people, it would be a bit of a waste for only him and Su Yurou to travel, and it would be meaningless if it was bigger. Xu Wenping nodded and said, "Okay, as long as you don't disturb us, you can make your own arrangements. I'll give you an hour. We'll set off in an hour." "Yes. Master." Xu Wenping turned around excitedly and said, "No problem, Yurou, let's go home and pack some clothes, and then go surfing on the sea." As he was speaking, he noticed that Su Yurou had a strange look on her face. What happened? Is there something on my face?" Su Yurou nodded, and then said with a lingering look, "There are flowers. Is the shark all yours?" Xu Wenping was just wondering when he saw Su Yurou take out her cell phone and open some gossip entertainment news, which gave Xu Wenping the most intuitive understanding of his cruise ship. The Shark, the latest international entertainment cruise ship, recently docked in Jinhai City. Chapter 68: Sea Fishing. It is reported that the Shark is a concept product of the famous American designer Bronte. Due to technical reasons, it cannot be mass-produced. Currently, there are only two in the world, one of which is the Green Dragon, which was customized by the Queen of Country Y. The Shark's more novel design has attracted many enthusiasts to explore it. There are rumors that the Shark has been purchased by an unknown wealthy person and is now a personal asset. Seeing that this gossip report had received more than 100,000 likes, Xu Wenping was speechless. He was an unknown rich man who didn't even know what the captain looked like, but the news was spreading like wildfire on the internet. It's getting more and more difficult to understand. They're one of Kui Haixianting, the internationally rare luxury cruise ship, and I checked, that Lamborghini that ordinary people can't even buy. Although it doesn't sound like much, I don't know how you got these goods that are not sold to the public. Xu Wenping scratched his forehead awkwardly and was about to explain when he saw Su Yurou pouting and saying, "If your parents weren't there and said you were a second-generation rich man in Kyoto, I would have believed it." "Okay, I don't want to dig into your secrets, let's go change clothes." Hey. The two drove to the large flat. Su Yurou was struggling in front of the mirror all the way. When she got inside, after choosing left and right, she leaned close to Xu Wenping's ear and blushed, "I found that my clothes are a bit conservative. Do you want to go out and buy some sexy ones?" I want it. I want you, you big head ghost." Su Yurou went out with a red face. That being said, Su Yurou still chose a few sexy swimsuits, and brought a lot of skincare and sunscreen items. She thought it would be a simple trip, but when they got to the cruise ship, there were so many bags that Xu Wenping couldn't carry them all by himself. In the end, Nami was allowed to board the ship, and she brought two servants with her to take care of their daily life on the road. Standing in front of the huge cruise ship, humans seemed insignificant. They followed the VIP ladder and went directly to the top floor of the cruise ship. The Shark is just as its name suggests. The exterior is painted with a shark with a big open mouth, which looks fierce and cute at the same time. When the elevator reaches the top floor, there is a large flat built entirely by the sea. It has all the facilities needed and can be used as a second home. Xu Wenping and Su Yurou smiled knowingly and lay in front of the huge floor-to-ceiling window with a shoe-shaped partition. Below their sight was the large deck. While drinking tea, they also saw the young men and women below happily walking up the escalator to the cruise ship. It seems that there are only 300 to 500 people on the cruise ship, including the main members and their ordinary staff. When they first got on, it seemed a bit crowded, but when they dispersed, the cruise ship was still very quiet. As the whistle sounded, the cruise ship set sail. It was sunset and the setting sun was warm. Xu Wenping raised his glass and clinked glasses with Su Yurou. "Cheers. Let's celebrate our pleasant trip." "Cheers." After taking a sip of wine, Xu Wenping called softly, "Nami, open the window." The huge sloping floor-to-ceiling window in front opened immediately. There was a large balcony in front that was big enough for playing volleyball. The boat was also covered with sea sand. Feeling the gentle sea breeze, sitting here felt like being on an island. I have to say, it was designed. Looking down from above, the travelers on the deck were also beginning to prepare for a lighted dinner. The brought-out tables and piled-up wine glasses all made this trip even more interesting. The two laughed and joked for a while, and Xu Wenping suggested, "Yurou, how about we go fishing? I heard that the fish are drowsy at this time of night, so it's easier to catch them. Do you know how to fish?" Su Yurou shook her head and said, I can't learn it." Go. Xu Wenping pulled Su Yurou, who looked around and asked, "How do you fish at such a high place? Do you have such a long fishing line?" "Hey, we're the Shark, we have a design." Xu Wenping took Su Yurou downstairs to the underground warehouse, opened the operation room, pressed a switch, and then a door of the cabin opened and a lift appeared. After the lift was lowered, all the fishing rods and fish baskets were ready. Su Yurou looked at it in amazement. The two of them came to the lifting platform. Under the simple guardrail, they could touch the sea water by stretching their hands a little, but unfortunately, the sea water did not splash up at all. "It's fun, right?" Xu Wenping asked happily when he saw this. Su Yurou nodded and said, "It's just as you said, there's a design. This lift is automatically adjustable, right? When the waves are high, it will be higher, and when the waves are low, it will automatically be lower. It also has an automatic drainage board. The design is really clever. Products produced by the system must be high quality." Xu Wenping chuckled and pretended to need the bait. Su Yurou was watching him with interest, and when she turned around, she saw that Xu Wenping was studying on his mobile phone. Fishing introductory video! Exclamation point. Why do I feel so unreliable? Who told you that fish will be easier to catch when it gets dark? Aren't there more fish on rainy days? Besides, our boat is still moving, will it be useful for you to make a nest? After hearing what Su Yurou said, Xu Wenping realized that she seemed to know a little more than him, but at this moment, he had already thrown the hook into the sea. That being said, oops! There's a fish on the hook. Without waiting for an explanation, Xu Wenping saw the float slide down and a little tension appeared on his hand. He said with surprise, "Isn't it possible that I am a fishing genius? Not heavy, the fish seems a little small. Get up for me. Huh? Little black fish. Damn, it can't be kelp." Xu Wenping pulled up and swung the long fishing rod. There was a black mass in front of the hook. As he got closer, Xu Wenping found something wrong. Seeing Xu Wenping's frustrated expression, Su Yurou burst into laughter and said, "Fishing for kelp? Har 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 har, you're going to make me die of laughter." Su Yurou later discovered that Xu Wenping was not smiling. He was holding half of the fishing line with 2 fingers. At this moment, what was swinging on the hook was actually half a piece of black silk. Su Yurou's laughter stopped abruptly. At this moment, a black object floated down from overhead. It was blown by the wind and was about to fall into the sea, but was blocked by Xu Wenping's fishing hook. The two looked at each other, and Su Yurou suddenly rubbed her chin and said seriously, "If nothing unexpected happens, these 2 stockings should be a set, right?" Xu Wenping blushed, raised his head and said, "Damn it! Who upstairs is so uncultured as to litter the sea? Har 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 har." The sound was drowned out by the waves, and Su Yurou laughed even more happily. Chapter 69, Emergency. Su Yurou laughed even more happily after being disturbed by this, but Xu Wenping had lost interest in fishing. He threw the fishing rod away and said, "No more fishing." Su Yurou followed while smiling from behind. The two were about to go upstairs. When they reached the first floor, they suddenly heard bursts of beautiful music. They looked at each other and Su Yurou whispered, "How about we sneak in and secretly watch their performance?" "Just what I want." Xu Wenping said slowly, "I saw a few familiar faces among the people who boarded the ship today." "Yeah, I found it too." "Then change your clothes before going." "Good." Xu Wenping suddenly realized that perhaps it was the right decision to let this tour group on board. Otherwise, no fish would be caught and it was not very late yet. He couldn't just, In short, the 2 of them went to the show and dressed simply, not too eye-catching nor too tacky. The small banquet hall number 1 on the first floor extends all the way to the outside of the deck. It is enough space for 300 to 500 people to move around. At this moment, the person singing in the banquet hall is a young man with a slicked back hair and powdered face. The 2 of them leaned over to look, and Su Yurou was slightly surprised and said, "Isn't this that guy? The one who played the second male lead in the palace drama, right?" Xu Wenping scratched his head and said, "I don't watch palace fighting dramas either. She's sitting in the first row on the right. I think I know that girl. She played the leading role in a funny web drama. Her name seems to be Chen something." The 2 of them stood at the door and started playing Connect the Dots. Surprisingly, many of these people looked familiar to them. Even if they were not famous, they must have seen them at least once in some movies or TV shows. The sound effects on the yacht were excellent, and most of the artists who dared to perform on stage performed quite well, and from time to time they would organize themselves into groups of 3 or 5 to film a short segment. However, as the plot entered its midpoint, things started to get weird. Almost half of the people, as if they had foreseen something, went back to their rooms to sleep. The spotlights were turned on, and the stage in the small banquet hall was also expanded into a T-shaped stage. Several staff members paired up the tables, and then 30 to 50 people took their seats one after another. Some of the beautiful girls who had been socializing in the front went behind the scenes. There were at least 100 beautiful girls in this group. Seeing that most of the people sitting on the viewing platform were men, With only 3 or 4 women, and all of them were leaning against the men, Xu Wenping looked strange, and whispered in Su Yurou's ear, "Will you not look at me if it's inappropriate? How about we first? Look. If you don't take a look, wouldn't it be a waste of time?" Su Yurou seemed a little excited. She calmly found a seat at the back and sighed to sit down. She leaned close to Xu Wenping's ear and said, "Isn't this a good opportunity to test your concentration?" Xu Wenping's expression turned pale and blue. The bright lights flickered, the curtain flashed, and the first to appear was a 5-member girl group. The 5 young and beautiful girls were all wearing black stockings and high heels, and their clothes were also very sexy. Do you know Korean girl groups? In comparison, the 5 people are wearing more revealing clothes at the moment. They don't have to worry about the pressure of the screen. It is estimated that they cover the red dots in front of their heads to maintain a bit of charm, rather than loyalty. An enchanting and charming piece of music played, but the scene seemed very calm. In the viewing stands below, only a few men were whispering to each other from a distance, as if they had reached some consensus. Xu Wenping stared with wide eyes, but after looking for a long time, he finally turned around and glanced at Su Yurou. Hearing the doubt in Su Yurou's tone, Xu Wenping said awkwardly, "So coquettish. And so ugly." Puff. Su Yurou has always been very confident about her appearance. Upon hearing this, she crossed her legs and slightly straightened her chest. This small action completely attracted Xu Wenping's attention. With one hand, he put his arm around Su Yurou's soft waist. Su Yurou's face turned red, but she did not refuse at this moment and let Xu Wenping hug her. After the 5-member girl group finished their performance, they came down to toast. The many members of the viewing group watched as if they were selecting goods. One man just hooked his finger at the girl who was the most beautiful in comparison. The girl twisted her waist, came over seductively, and sat on the man's lap. After this step, Xu Wenping and Su Yurou naturally understood everything. The young ladies who came on stage to perform afterwards were naturally more charming than the last, and their attire was much more casual than when they had just gathered at the cocktail party. Walking out from behind the tea stage, some were hot and unrestrained, some were reserved, and some were cool and noble. Although the temperament is all faked, it is also a low-profile version of the fat and thin women with colorful butterflies. Xu Wenping and Su Yurou were brewing their feelings here, hiding in a corner. Although Xu Wenping tried his best not to touch her, he still couldn't resist his eagerness, and the two hugged each other, hot and sticky. It happened that at this moment, the catwalk show reached the middle of the show, and scenes of chaos and disorder appeared in front of Xu Wenping and Su Yurou's eyes. The scene was so lewd that Xu Wenping thought he had a strong tolerance for it. His fiery heart calmed down a little. After nodding to Su Yurou, he prepared to walk out of the venue. At this moment, a middle-aged man with a mustache who was sitting in the middle of the field and had never been moved by the woman on the stage, suddenly raised his head, stood up very smoothly, and followed with a cane in his hand. As Xu Wenping and Su Yurou walked out of the banquet hall, the silver cane came across and blocked them. The middle-aged man with a mustache pushed his stone glasses, and then, under Xu Wenping's surprised gaze, he pushed them away with his walking stick. The two of them held hands tightly, and the middle-aged man with a mustache took over and stood opposite Su Yurou. He showed an expression that he thought was very handsome, and smiled. "Hello girl, my name is Chen Guanrong. To be honest, I noticed you the moment you entered the venue. Your temperament is like a water lily. Although you are in a lewd place, your eyes are clear and your temperament is bright. You are untainted by the mud, and you are clear and pure without being coquettish. This kind of beauty is not comparable to that of ordinary women. Girl, I am Chen Guanrong, and I have some ability. If you are willing to let me package you, I can make you a top player within half a year." Chapter 70. Go upstairs for a cup of tea. You old man, you really have a sharp eye. I didn't see you turn your head throughout the whole process. How did you notice us? Xu Wenping's inner thoughts. If Xu Wenping hadn't seen a strange look on Su Yurou's face and it was Yu Youling who was being teased, he would have thrown a big shove at her. However, how could Su Yurou be an ordinary woman? Hearing the old man say this, Su Yurou's eyes flashed with interest, and she said, "Really? Mr. Chen? You are not lying to me, are you? A first line star. Good job." If Xu Wenping didn't know Su Yurou's psychology and this brilliant performance, he would have believed that she wanted to be an actor. With such acting skills, she would be worthy of being an actor. Chen Guanrong smiled triumphantly and nodded gently. "Of course it's a piece of cake. Otherwise, girl, come upstairs with me and talk slowly. I want to see how much you understand about the entertainment industry. I really don't understand. Seeing Su Yurou coming up with a plan, Xu Wenping followed behind trying to hold back his laughter, and was about to see Qian Guanrong get slapped in the face when suddenly a young man came over. Qian Guanrong, what are you doing? Is there anyone who can stand up to ward off disaster? Xu Wenping and Su Yurou looked at each other, then took a half step back and looked at the young man. He seemed to be in his early 20s, looking a little green and immature, but he had a hint of nobility in his bones, as if he had been pampered since childhood. He held a cigar in one hand and gritted his teeth slightly. Hearing being called, Qian Guanrong raised his eyebrows slightly. After seeing who was coming, Qian Guanrong said sarcastically, "Hey, isn't this Mr. Xiaodu? You climbed up from a woman's belly. You go first. I'll take care of this old guy." President Du clenched his fists, turned around and said something domineeringly to Xu Wenping and Su Yurou. "No one is allowed to leave today." Qian Guanrong suddenly raised his voice. In fact, Xu Wenping and Su Yurou had no intention of leaving. The former had just sent a message to Nami, asking her to come down. Qian Guanrong looked at Mr. Du coldly and said, "Du Huan, I'm giving you face by calling you Mr. Du. Do you really think you're some piece of shit? Your insignificant father is dead. 80% of Wujiang Entertainment's shares belong to me. If you are sensible, take your 15% and enjoy your life of wealth. Or do you want to end up like your father?" Qian Guanrong's tone suddenly became higher. Du Huan clenched his fists, his veins exposed, and the cigar burned his fingers, but he didn't feel any pain. Looking at the enemy in front of him who had killed his father and taken away his property, Du Huan felt a sense of powerlessness. "Go away. Don't disturb me from discussing our future with that girl." Qian Guanrong pushed his glasses and seemed to be amiable again. "No. Qian Guanrong, don't I know what a shady scheme you have?" Du Huan pointed at the banquet hall and said, "I can't control what happens inside that door, and I don't want to control it, but once you get out of that door, I can't just ignore it. My father has always wanted a clean entertainment industry. As a son, I must inherit his legacy." After saying this, Qian Guanrong's hands began to shake with anger, and he was about to twist the cane in his hand. Du Huan was obviously panicked, because if the cane was twisted, a murder weapon would emerge. But he was still not afraid, and shouted loudly, "Qian Guanrong, are you going to shed blood? I tell you, this cruise ship is rented by me, and the owner of the shark is upstairs. Think about it first, can you afford to shed blood here?" Qian Guanrong was slightly stunned, but when he looked up, the confusion in his eyes flashed away, and he also knew that there was a distinguished person living upstairs. The person who could own the shark was naturally extremely valuable. Although he had never seen her, the fact that she was just a housekeeper made Qian Guanrong a little afraid. Qian Guanrong is naturally very good at judging the situation. Such a large cruise ship only accepted 300 to 500 of them before it set sail, and they were only given 1 hour to prepare before sailing. In other words, whether they rented the ship or not, the ship would go out to sea. Just the cost loss and fuel expenses alone would cost tens of millions for this trip. He really couldn't afford to offend someone who would spend tens of millions for just one trip. Moreover, this ship cannot be measured by money. Being able to get it is a symbol of status. Seeing Qian Guanrong stop, Du Huan also breathed a sigh of relief. But the next moment, Qian Guanrong was furious, and he felt evil in his heart. He twisted the cane in his hand, and a short knife appeared in his hand. He actually stabbed straight at Du Huan. "Anyway, we'll be reaching the high seas soon. What big deal can a missing person cause?" Bite. Just at this moment, the special elevator stopped, and the elevator door opened. Nami suddenly flew forward and kicked, buckled and grabbed her. Crack. R. There was a sound of Qian Guanrong's wrist being dislocated. Nami's face turned red in the face of the huge resistance, but she still held Qian Guanrong down tightly. "Ms. Na, Ms. Nami!" Du Huan exclaimed in surprise. Nami took the knife from Qian Guanrong's hand and took it in her own hand. She turned around but ignored Du Huan and Qian Guanrong. Instead, she knelt on one knee, presented the knife with both hands, and said, "It was Nami's negligence that frightened the master and mistress." Xu Wenping and Su Yurou both looked calm and composed, yet even a little weird at this moment. The two of them were both experienced people, and Su Yurou also knew how strong Xu Wenping was. With one punch, a 2-meter tall man would be half dead, not to mention an old man with a knife. The situation was always under control, so the two were not in a hurry at all. Nami's performance surprised Xu Wenping. I remember you didn't tell me last time that you knew some kung fu. Nami blushed and said, capturing criminals is my weakness. Nami is ashamed of it and dares not tell their master. Nami suggests that the master hire some professional bodyguards. At this moment, both Chen Guangrong and Du Huan were stunned. Du Huan wiped his glasses and looked at the place where Nami was kneeling. That young man and woman were actually the owners of the shark, the indescribable noble people. Chen Guangrong's face turned pale and blue. He opened his mouth several times but was ultimately speechless. He had no room for excuses for how he had teased Su Yurou just now. Get up. Although Xu Wenping felt uncomfortable with Nami kneeling down, it seemed to be a kind of etiquette in their country, kneeling service. Boss Xiaodu, let's go upstairs and have a cup of tea together. Just as he was about to turn around, Xu Wenping suddenly smiled and spoke to the righteous Du Huan. Du Huan immediately showed joy on her face and said, thank you for the invitation. Xu Wenping didn't even ask Chen Guangrong a single question. Just as they were waiting to get on the elevator, Su Yurou jokingly asked, by the way, Mr. Chen, how much do first-line female stars make a year? 5,000. Bite. Chapter 71 Delivery. Until the elevator closed, Su Yurou's gentle smile suddenly flashed through Chen Guangrong's mind. He felt his head buzzing and fell to the ground. He had no strength left in his body but a weak breath. What should I do? What else can I do? Why? Why didn't that nobleman teach me a lesson just now? No one knew why such a strange idea appeared in Chen Guangrong's mind, but as this strange idea appeared, Chen Guangrong felt more and more that even if Xu Wenping had stabbed him twice in anger just now, he could still get up after receiving treatment. Don't pay any attention. Don't pay any attention. Du Huan, Nami and others followed behind Xu Wenping. Xu Wenping smiled warmly, went upstairs and lay down on the sofa. He glanced at Su Yurou and said with a smile, that kind of person seems to be too rubbish. How about doing justice for the heavens? Su Yurou's eyes flashed with sharpness, and she touched her chin and said, I'll listen to you. Xu Wenping ignored Du Huan who was sitting very still. Nami went to make tea while Xu Wenping made a phone call. API. What are you busy with? Delivering goods. I'm going to the dock to pick up some frozen fish. That's a coincidence. You sail out to sea and meet the shark, and by the way, help me deliver the goods on the high seas. So brutal. Brutal. I don't know, hiss, anyway, I like it. He. Who's the recipient? Xu Wenping hung up the phone nonchalantly. It wasn't really that he was showing off in front of Du Huan, but with the experience during this period, Xu Wenping's character had become extremely stable. This world is full of black and white, as well as some grey areas. Xu Wenping had seen Jiang Yueming's solution. As the chairman of the board, he couldn't be worse than a subordinate, right? Sometimes, judgment comes slowly. The ruling is more convenient. Seeing sweat on Xiao Duan's forehead, the domineering and majestic boss just now looked like a child being lectured. Xu Wenping smiled and poured him a cup of tea, saying, don't be nervous. From what I heard about your conversation with Mr. Qian, I think you two have some grudges against each other. Given your age and your newfound status, it's understandable that you can't beat those old hands. My lord, That's enough. What's the point of being a noble or not? We are of similar age. My name is Xu Wenping. If you don't mind, just call me Brother Ping. Come, have some tea. Slurp, cough. Du Huan drank tea and coughed twice. Xu Wenping smiled bitterly and shook his head, patted Du Huan on the shoulder and said, can you calm down? If you are like this, I am afraid you will not be able to accept your own property after you go back. I can do it. Brother Ping, in fact, I control a lot of the company's resources. Although Chen Guangrong owns some shares, the core of an entertainment company is the artists. When my father passed away, he left me a few big artists with whom he had private contracts. This is enough for half of the company. I can do it. Du Huan's eyes lit up and she clenched her fists tightly. It was obvious that although this opportunity was a trivial matter for Xu Wenping, it was no less than a new life for Du Huan. Xu Wenping nodded gently. After a moment's hesitation, he took out his notebook, wrote down a phone number and handed it to Du Huan. Du Huan took it with great care and said, this is your contact information. Xu Wenping shook his head. Duwan's expression suddenly changed from anticipation to loneliness. The person on this phone is Jiang Yuming, the president of Dehao Group. He is only 10 or 8 years older than you, but his methods are much stronger than yours. If you encounter any problems that you can't solve, you can ask your brother Jiang for advice. Just say you are Xu Wenping's friend. Oh, wait. Duwan was already a little disappointed when she heard that the call was not from Xu Wenping, but when she heard Xu Wenping's introduction, she was dumbfounded and stammered, Jiang. Jiang. President Jiang Yuming? The president of Dehao Group. This person is a big shot. My father used to have cigarettes, alcohol, tea, and beautiful women, but he never knocked on Mr. Jiang's door. He actually. Xu Wenping was amused by this, and he laughed. Oh. Is Xiao Jiang's threshold so high? I'll have to criticize him later. After all, Dehao is an investment group with countless industries under its umbrella. It is normal that a mere entertainment company is not taken seriously. It is estimated that the only entertainment companies that can move Jiang Yuming are the top ones in the country, but he will not respect them too much. To be honest, in the circle of truly wealthy people, performers have always been at the lowest level of the food chain. To put it bluntly, they are just clowns. The artists who are looked up to by others as high and mighty are mostly top wealthy people, with contemptible escorts around them. Although there are some people who are truly pursuing their dreams, and it has to be said that their mentality is worthy of recognition, the industry of their dreams is ultimately a bit inferior. Du Huan was finally shocked when she heard this, and finally she understood Xu Wenping's true strength. Ding! Belated reward. The intelligent host has finally learned to make active choices, and unexpectedly triggered a hidden choice reward. Task name, Alliance, a way to win over Xiaodu. 1. Watch from the sidelines. The host does not understand the true meaning of human relationships and has given up on nurturing a young person with growth potential. Reward, a complete set of Carnegie's Women's Wisdom series. 2. Give some pointers and wait and see. Although the host knows how to use people, he doesn't know how to win people's hearts. Reward, a set of the complete edition of The Art of War by Sun Tzu. 3. Extend an olive branch and gain Duwan's respect. The host already knows people's hearts well and can have greater ambitions. Reward, 100% of Xinjiang Pharmaceuticals shares. Hide selection complete. Xinjiang Pharmaceutical shares have been issued. The host can contact the person in charge at any time to receive them. Note, Xinjiang Pharmaceutical is one of the 3 major pharmaceutical groups in the provincial capital. Although it has a good shell, it is about to be broken up and reorganized due to the chaos in the management. Please manage it in time. Hearing what the system said, Xu Wenping was shocked. Wow, this is not only a selection system, but also a perfect life training system. The money of Dehao Group alone is definitely not enough to be spent in the short term, but who can resist the temptation of more wealth? Hey. After chatting briefly with Du Huan and sending him away, Xu Wenping was in a very good mood. He was in high spirits and everything around him seemed even better. For example, at this moment, Su Yurou seemed to have anticipated what was going to happen next. She blushed and turned her back to Xu Wenping. Xu Wenping hugged her from behind, and Su Yurou trembled slightly. Chapter 72, The Enchanted Wife. Wenping. How about, have a drink first? Okay. The night is charming. The ocean under the starry sky is sparkling with silver water droplets. The sea breeze blows on the face, and the deep starry sky seems to be reflected in the crimson wine glass. The two of them took a sip. Su Yurou, who originally had a flushed face, became even more beautiful with rosy eyes and a peach blossom. She was so beautiful that she could make people feel happy with just a glance, without even touching her. Different from Yu Youling's beauty, which is a bit immature, Su Yurou is like a ripe peach, with sweet flesh and full of juice. One bite of it will make your heart sweet. Wenping, my daughter will be back next week. I've thought about it, can we go get the certificate after we meet our daughter? Actually, my daughter is not my biological daughter. I will tell you more about her later. Xu Wenping was surprised when he heard this. Su Yurou stood up and gently placed her peachy buttocks on Xu Wenping's legs. She smiled softly and said, Wenping. Actually, I'm just a girl. I'm also very nervous to give myself completely to you. That old Mr. Li. He also said that he would give his granddaughter. Although Su Yurou's heart was pounding, their bodies were pressed against each other and Xu Wenping could feel her nervousness. But the more nervous she was, the more Su Yurou avoided the topic and stopped talking about the main topic of the night. Ding. The system is a little busy today. However, the decision at this moment concerns the host's lifelong happiness. First, stay calm and behave like a gentleman. If you don't push me down in this situation, the system will look down on me. Reward, Indonesian God Oil +3. Second, be patient and persuasive. The system really doesn't believe that the host would do something like this, something that only a handsome guy would do. Reward, pancake making process. 3. Forcefully push down. A man should do what a man should do. Host, go for it. Reward, skill, unbreakable golden gun, unlimited combat power for life. Su Yurou was still talking about something else when she suddenly felt her body lighten. It turned out that Xu Wenping was holding her up in his arms like a princess. Su Yurou couldn't help but hook her arms around Xu Wenping's neck. Su Yurou's face turned red, and when she saw an evil smile flashing on Xu Wenping's gentle face, she really wanted to find a hole in the ground to crawl into. Sister Su, do you like it to be gentle or exciting? Xu Wenping put his mouth close to Su Yurou's ear, and his gentle tone stimulated her earlobe. The smell of male hormones lingered at the tip of Su Yurou's nose, and she felt her whole body soften. As she came to the bed, Su Yurou laid herself on the bed, looked at Xu Wenping seductively, and said softly, "You little rascal, I'll let you do whatever you want, isn't that enough? Then I will become even more reckless." Su Yurou's face turned red, but she did not cover her face with the quilt like Yu Youling did. Instead, when Xu Wenping touched her, they looked at each other in a daze and she took the initiative to kiss him. The tip of the tongue was entangled, the sweet sweat was dripping, and the soft fingers were against the tempered steel. Su Yurou gently lowered her head, and after just a moment's hesitation, she kissed the unknown place. Although it was very soft, Xu Wenping could feel Su Yurou's slight clumsiness and knew that it was also the first time for her to feel so ashamed. He could not help but whisper in Su Yurou's ear, "Yurou, don't force yourself." Su Yurou looked up with a blushing face and said, "Since I want you to be clean. I want you to think about me when you untie your belt outside." The desire to conquer, which usually seemed to be suppressed, suddenly came up at this moment. Su Yurou became more proactive in pestering him, and Xu Wenping was also excited by the charm of this contrast. The dragon pierced the peach blossom. A few moans and tears. It's not that the world is not soul-stirring. There is no room for sadness at this time. This is definitely an unprecedented feeling. Especially with the system's invincible power, Xu Wenping is no longer the same as the day before. Confident and unrestrained, Xu Wenping completely indulged himself. In the beginning, Su Yurou was also mainly in ecstasy, but later on, she probably couldn't bear it anymore, and she became passionate and crazy several times, with no limit. She had wanted to please him and make him feel comfortable, but in the end she couldn't bear it any longer. She hugged Xu Wenping with her trembling body and whispered in his ear, "My little rascal, please forgive me. If you continue like this, I'll burst into tears." After hearing the delicate plea for mercy, Xu Wenping suddenly became excited and then relaxed. The two hugged each other. Su Yurou's throat was dry and her breath was as fragrant as orchid. Xu Wenping hurried down to pour some water and gave Su Yurou 2 sips. Su Yurou said with a wronged face, "You little rascal, you really took me from heaven to hell. You are so fierce, I will look down on other men even more. So sweet." Xu Wenping smiled, but glanced toward the door with a hint of suspicion. At this moment, there was indeed a person standing outside the door. Nami left quietly, but at this moment she was lying on the bed, biting her lips, one of her delicate hands wandering, her face flushed, and her legs trembling slightly. She thought to herself, "Oh my god, is there such a perfect master? If the master is willing to play tricks on Nami, wouldn't it be worth it for Nami to die on the spot?" Nami, what are you thinking about? That's the master. You are just a servant, you should do your job well. But, it's obvious that the mistress can't satisfy the master. In this case, shouldn't I serve? Nami never thought that one day she would be entangled in such a thing. In fact, when she arrived at the door just now, Nami originally wanted to knock and walk in, but then she heard the lewd music from inside. Su Yurou's repeated pleas for mercy made Nami's mind run wild. She walked silently back to her bedroom. Soon, bursts of sweet voices were heard from inside the door. "Owner. It is a quiet night. The sea breeze blew on his face, the sun shone from overhead, and the warmth fell on the bed, but Xu Wenping was still energetic and got up easily. In fact, Su Yurou had already woken up. She lay slumped on the bed and tried to stand up several times, but her legs were shaking so badly that she couldn't stand up. Xu Wenping smiled, brought the prepared breakfast to Su Yurou, and gently helped her up. Eat breakfast. Xu Wenping had just pulled back the quilt and was about to hand the milk to Su Yurou, but suddenly he discovered that there was a little blush on the quilt. Xu Wenping smiled slightly, fed Su Yurou milk himself, and asked, "Yurou, tell me about your daughter." Chapter 73 Talking about my daughter. Su Yurou smiled softly. She wanted to move, but then she felt weak all over. She whispered to Xu Wenping, "Come here." Then, she covered her mouth and chuckled, saying, "My daughter is my goddaughter. She has been fostered by me since she was a child. How should I put it? It's a bit difficult to explain anyway. Just treat her as if she has no parents. She treats me as her biological mother, so you have to fulfill your responsibilities as a father in the future." Xu Wenping was stunned for a moment, then burst out laughing. Naturally, he became happier and hugged Su Yurou tightly, saying, "Thank you so much. Yurou. It's not difficult, husband. Are you feeling it again? This. Husband. They have been holding it in for more than 30 years. After drinking a glass of milk, Su Yurou's exhausted body seemed to have regained some strength, and she suddenly started to act naughty again. Xu Wenping's face turned red, and he felt his belt pop open again with a click. "Husband, my daughter's matter is related to the thing I told you that I can't say openly. But you have to believe me, I see." Su Yurou smiled faintly, leaned over and whispered in Xu Wenping's ear, "You useless little piece of trash, come on. Lulu." Although he knew that it was Su Yurou who deliberately provoked him, it was difficult for Xu Wenping not to fall into this trap. So, it was another round of early morning exercise. Finally, when Su Yurou begged for mercy again, Xu Wenping bounced his hips a few times and reluctantly let her go. Then Su Yurou fell into a coma, and Xu Wenping got up to exercise and bask in the sun. He also received a call from Chenpi at noon. "Brother Ping, the goods have been delivered." Xu Wenping looked at the bustling crowd below and did not ask Du Huan's opinion again. Their cruise is scheduled for 4 days, which was arranged by Nami. Xu Wenping was also very satisfied. After all, Su Yurou was in charge of such a large company, but she was not like him who was a hands-off boss. If she said it would be a week, if something happened, he might not be able to go back in time. The next day, they arrived at the terminal on the high seas. Xu Wenping and Su Yurou watched the rising moon over the sea together, and then they returned. After the excitement of the first day, they took a short break on the second day, but on the third day, the two of them still lived a shameless life. Of course, what followed was Su Yurou's repeated pleas for mercy. Women are all like wolves when they are 30, but under Xu Wenping's management, this wolf is no different from a lamb. By the 4th day, we could see the shore. Su Yurou bit her lips like a little lamb, leaned on Xu Wenping's chest, and said aggrievedly, "Husband, or let's find you a younger one after we go home. Although I feel so comfortable, I really can't stand it." Har. Su Yurou pinched her chin and said, "I think that little girl named Yu Youling is pretty good. How about I be generous and bring her over to live with me? You are so generous." Xu Wenping couldn't help but frown when he heard this. He said, "Come on, Yurou, don't say that again. You think you're generous? Can you get past my parents?" Snort. Su Yurou pouted and snorted, "How can I manage such a big family by myself? Then I won't find a mistress for you. I can hire a secretary for myself, right? Well, I think Xiao Yu Youling is good. She is young, practical and capable." Xu Wenping's heart trembled. Wow, every sentence is Yu Youling. I'm afraid you have used your amazing 7th sense to guess what happened between Yu Youling and me. Anyway, Xu Wenping didn't dare to speak. You are so practical and capable, you pay attention to details. Su Yurou smiled delicately, turned her back to look out the window, and a hint of wisdom suddenly flashed in her eyes. She is already a mature and intellectual woman, fundamentally different from those jealous little girls. Her life may seem short, but it is not short either. For someone like Xu Wenping, who has achieved so much at a young age, there is no telling how many gentle traps she will have to go through in the future. If she wants to be a good wife, she has to eliminate all the bad things, such as avoiding the harassment from those coquettish and cheap women, but she can indeed let a woman with a clean family background like Yu Youling share some of the pressure with her. The atmosphere as the two of them lay in bed was very strange. Xu Wenping suddenly felt that the other shore was a little far away. Coincidentally, at this moment, his phone rang. Xu Wenping was surprised and quickly picked up the phone. Hey! Yuming! How are you doing recently? Are you healthy? Jiang Yuming was slightly stunned when he heard Xu Wenping's words, but he quickly responded, "Thank you for your concern, Chairman. I am still in good health." That's good, what can I do for you? Jiang Yuming immediately said respectfully, "I received a call from Du Huan the day before yesterday, and I have asked my assistant to contact her." Chairman, you are really insightful. It just so happens that our group is developing entertainment business, and you have sent me such a good partner. My suggestion is to establish a good, long-term strategic cooperation relationship with Wujiang Entertainment where Du Huan works. Under normal circumstances, Xu Wenping would not want to listen to a word of such high-sounding words. But at this time, because he couldn't talk to Su Yurou, Xu Wenping listened with great interest and said, "Great. This is a good thing. Where does our group plan to start?" That's right, Chairman. We plan to build a coastal film and television base directly. The plan is to make it the most innovative and modern offshore film and television base in the entire East Province. Good. Not bad. It must be new and fresh. Jiang Yuming smiled and nodded, saying, "That's right, Chairman. We haven't acquired this piece of land yet, because it is owned by the Highland Bureau, so the signing of the agreement requires the personal involvement of the board of directors. I would like to ask, Chairman, when are you free? It would be best if it is nearby, so we can go to the Highland Bureau to handle this procedure." What a coincidence. I'm docking today. How about this afternoon? I'll be there soon, so I should be able to make it. That's great. Yuming will wait for the chairman's good news. Jiang Yuming quickly hung up the phone. Xu Wenping was slightly startled, and squinted his eyes slightly. Seeing that Su Yurou still had her back to him, he continued chatting to the air. After chatting for 20 minutes, he didn't hear the cruise ship's whistle. Su Yurou reminded him, "Okay, stop pretending. We've already docked. Look at what you do when I mention Yu Youling. You have something to hide from me, how can you hide it from me?" Xu Wenping's face suddenly turned red and he burst into laughter. Su Yurou couldn't help but smile softly, indicating that she was not angry. Chapter 74: A Wasted Trip. Okay, I know you're busy. I'll go back to my place first. Otherwise, if my daughter comes back, she won't be able to find me. The two came to the coast to say goodbye. Nami had already prepared the car to go back, and on the other side, Jiang Yuming also asked Jiao Qiang to pick him up. Hey, but... Xu Wenping hesitated to speak, still afraid that Su Yurou would be angry because of Yu Youling's matter. The latter just smiled sweetly and said, "I don't even have a name, so how can I stay at your house every day? Don't worry. After I see my daughter, can't I move in?" After making sure that Su Yurou was not angry, Xu Wenping scratched his head and said, "It doesn't matter where you live. I'm just afraid that you will be angry with me. Go get busy." After watching Su Yurou leave, Xu Wenping got into Jiao Qiang's car and asked softly, "How is Yuming doing?" Jiao Qiang had already started the car. Upon hearing this, he frowned slightly and said with a wry smile, "Chairman, the president has already gone there. The situation doesn't seem optimistic." Not very optimistic. Hearing this, Xu Wenping, the hands-off shopkeeper, was really confused for a moment and said, "Tell me, why are you not optimistic?" Jiao Qiang sighed and said, "We have all the necessary documents, but the director seems to be obstructing us. Mr. Jiang, I was full of confidence the first time I went in. This is already my second time visiting you. The procedures are complete, so why can't I get through?" Xu Wenping frowned. Jiao Qiang laughed and said, "Compared with our Dahao Group's qualifications and strength, no other company in the entire Jinhai city is more worthy of this piece of land, and they don't have the ability to develop it. But this director has a relative. I think it's a nephew or a niece, who, like us, has taken a fancy to this piece of land. I guess what he meant was that the Jinhai Land and Resources Bureau should publicly auction the land to his nephew, and then let our Dahao Group take over. After spending this much, the land will at least double in value. If the director is a little more stubborn and wants some shares, it will be difficult for us to keep the project. Xu Wenping only thought about it for a moment and then he understood the trick. It's dark. Really dark. But it seems there is no way. Since ancient times, businessmen have not fought with officials, and money often seems worthless in the face of power. The car stopped in front of the Jinhai Land and Resources Bureau. As soon as Xu Wenping got out of the car, he saw Jiang Yuming walking out dejectedly. Seeing Xu Wenping, Jiang Yuming lowered his head even more, spoke slowly, and said with a wry smile, "Sorry, Chairman. This time you may have to make a wasted trip." "No." Jiang Yuming smiled bitterly and lowered his head, saying, "This director is using chicken feathers as a token of authority. He is asking for too much. He wants 50% of the profit right away. It's better not to do this project." Xu Wenping touched his chin and nodded, saying, "Well, I just heard from Xiao Jiao, okay, don't worry, I'll take care of this matter." Jiang Yuming was slightly startled, raised his head and looked at Xu Wenping a little strangely, and said, "Chairman, please don't bother Yuming. If you have to run the project yourself, what do you need me as the president for? Running a project." Xu Wenping was slightly stunned, then he smiled bitterly and said, "Of course it's not a project." Xu Wenping took out his cell phone, clicked on a call, and was about to dial it. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Forget it. This relationship is too important. Wait a few days and I will respond to you then." Of course it was Li Jinkang's call. This city lord, he can't just call and use it, right? Li Jinkang would never sit idly by for such a small matter, but it would be a bit of a waste to call now. Just when Xu Wenping was about to get in the car and go home, a four-wheeled Audi suddenly approached. The license plate number with 4 zeros and 1 startled Xu Wenping and Jiang Yuming, and the latter even stood up straight unconsciously. Unexpectedly, the car, which was about to go directly into the Jinhai Land and Resources Bureau, stopped beside Xu Wenping instead. The rear window was rolled down, and his simple face and short flat hair still carried an air of majesty without even getting angry. Li Jinkang pinched his fingers, pointed and chuckled, "Xiaoshu. What a coincidence. Hello, Mr. Li." Xu Wenping nodded hurriedly and said with a smile, "It is indeed a coincidence, Mr. Li. Yuming and I came to the Jinhai Land and Resources Bureau to do some business. If you have something important to do, you should deal with it first." Har har, got rejected. Li Jinkang raised his eyebrows and glanced at the Jinhai Land and Resources Bureau suggestively. Xu Wenping lowered his head and laughed. Li Jinkang said, "Don't be discouraged. The department's mission is to be fair, just and open. As long as you follow the qualified judicial procedures, I believe that your efforts will be proportional to your luck." "Mr. Li is right." Xu Wenping nodded gently. At this time, Jiang Yuming was at a loss. Seeing that Li Jinkang actually spoke to Xu Wenping in a very friendly manner, with a feeling of instructing the younger generation in his words, he immediately took the opportunity to say, "Mr. Li, this time it's not that we are unfair, just and open. You have heard of the reputation of our Dehao group, but they are asking for too much." Shut up." Xu Wenping turned his head and glared at Jiang Yuming. Although his realm was quite good, he still lost his composure for a moment in front of a strong man like Li Jinkang. Who knew that Li Jinkang raised his hand and said, "Don't let this little friend say it." Since Li Jinkang had already asked the question, Xu Wenping naturally couldn't stop him. Jiang Yuming told Li Jinkang everything about how he was rejected. "Yo-ho. Oh, it seems I'm still not mature enough." Li Jinkang rubbed his old face and said, "My father was right. If you are in a high position and don't keep a clear mind and eyes, it is inevitable that bad apples like this will sneak in." Li Jinkang smiled and said, "It's better to do it today than to wait for a day. Xiaoshu, you can arrange for someone to host a social event and we can go in and have a drink after get off work. But remember, you must be frugal. I'm not ordering you, but you have to be frugal. Dishes over 100 yuan and wine over 500 yuan are not allowed to be served. Do you understand?" Xu Wenping's heart moved, knowing that Li Jinkang was trying to bring him to get acquainted with him, and he hurriedly said, "Don't worry. Uncle Li, although I didn't say a few words to you, I can understand the old man's noble character. Let's drink erguitu today, okay? You kid." Li Jinkang laughed and expressed his satisfaction. Li Jinkang pushed the door and got out of the car. Then, he hinted to Jiang Yuming and Xu Wenping, "You go in first. I'll take a look at the back to see how powerful my Jinhai Land and Resources Bureau is. Okay. Jiang Yuming even straightened his back. It was probably the first time in his life that his face turned so red and he was so excited. Li Jinkeng waved his hand to signal that the car with 4 zeros and 1 moved back a little. Chapter 75. I'm better at dealing with things. Build a 7-star stove, boil 3 rivers in a copper kettle, set up an 8 immortal table, entertain 16 parties, all who come are guests, it all depends on your mouth, smile when you meet, don't think about it afterwards, the tea will get cold when people leave. What do you mean by Juxiang or not? Before arriving at the cabin again, I was at the Jinhai Land and Resources Bureau office, where a fat man was humming a little tune, looking very contented. Jiang Yuming turned around and saw that Li Jinkang just lowered his head and chuckled, expressing his hushing tone. Jiang Yuming knocked on the door, quickly put on a flattering smile, and bowed, saying, Director Zhang. I admire your singing of Battle of Wits very much. If Yuming had 1,000th of your singing voice, he would have been on stage to sing a play long ago. Director Zhang was smiling, but when he saw Jiang Yuming coming in, he raised his eyebrows slightly and said in a gloomy tone, CEO Jiang, why are you so clingy? You came into my room 3 times in one day. What's the matter? You came to visit me 3 times. That Director Zhang, this time our chairman wants to meet you in person. You know, Director Zhang, the number you just mentioned, how can I, a worker, be sure of it? The real master is here. Okay, then we can talk. Director Zhang suddenly laughed, and was slightly startled when he saw Xu Wenping approaching. In his imagination, the president of Dehao Group was at least a middle-aged man, even if he was not an old man. Seeing the young man Xu Wenping, he couldn't help but start looking back. Xu Wenping laughed and said, Director Zhang, stop looking. I am the chairman of Dehao Group. My last name is Xu Wenping. Boss Xu, you are young and promising. Director Zhang exclaimed in admiration, great, young people are easier to talk to, aren't they? Come on, sit down. Director Zhang's attitude towards Xu Wenping was obviously more respectful than Jiang Yuming. After Xu Wenping sat down, Director Zhang smiled slowly and said, Xiao Jiang should have told you, right? I said you wanted 50%. Director Zhang's expression changed slightly. After all, this kind of thing can only be hinted at, not mentioned in person. Director Zhang wanted to close the door to talk, but Xu Wenping waved his hand generously and said, Okay, Director Zhang, you can see that I am a young man. I've told you clearly that I built this film and television city for no other reason than to seduce a female star. It doesn't matter how much money it costs. I'll give you 80%. Can you build the film and television city for me? Xu Wenping raised his hand to light a cigarette, looking like a rich second generation. Not only was Jiang Yuming slightly stunned, but Li Jinkang, who was peeking outside, almost laughed out loud. Not to mention, Director Zhang was also surprised, shocked by Xu Wenping's way of killing the master with just a random punch. You talk to me about money, I don't talk to you about money. So my great Director Zhang, please stop doing these nasty things. Even if I don't make a penny, should I fix this thing? If you can fix it, why would I need to use your crappy land? If you fix it, I can just buy it. Exclamation point. Xu Wenping continued indifferently, I'll tell you the bottom line. I'll protect my capital with 60%, so I can only give you 40%. If you agree, do it. If you don't agree, I'll go to another city to repair it. Director Zhang never expected that he, a seasoned player, would be overwhelmed by a young man. It took him a long while to react, and he slammed the table and yelled, Xu, did I give you face? Get out. Get out. Both of you get out of this office right now. When will you learn how to behave and deal with things? Come back to me. It's no wonder that Xu Wenping was shocked by Director Zhang's angry look. In the end, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart, although these random punches can show off their power for a while, they are still not enough to really beat the master. That's true. How can the project be carried out with 60% of the cost? Even bragging like this is not allowed. However, at this moment, a friendly voice suddenly spoke up, Hey, Director Zhang, calm down, these kids don't know how to handle things, I will do it. Come on, have a cigarette. Director Zhang was angry, and took the cigarette after being comforted. But as soon as he lit it, he threw it on the ground and said, Damn, what a rubbish cigarette. Hee. My bad. This is Jinjiang cigarettes, which cost 16 yuan a pack. Don't people in Jinhai smoke this? Director Zhang, what do you usually smoke? Damn it, cigarettes below Huazi are simply not acceptable. You? Why does this classmate of yours look familiar? As Director Zhang was speaking, he looked at Li Jinkang from head to toe. He could not help scratching his head, puzzled by the fact that he was wearing an office uniform. I'm just an ordinary citizen. It seems that Director Zhang is not familiar with me. How about contacting your chief? I think your chief cares more about the citizens' problems in Jinhai than you do. Li Jinkang's tone was gentle. But the more I listened, the more I saw Li Jinkang's extremely office-like outfit. The clerks also wore the same outfit, but for some reason, the temperament of Li Jinkang was different. Why are you calling the bureau chief? If you don't call, how about I call? As he spoke, Li Jinkang's expression gradually changed from a mild spring to a grim winter. He picked up the office phone, answered it, and said softly, "Old Wang, if I heard you drinking and singing outside now, I would be so angry that I couldn't hold it back." Li. Mayor. Your Excellency, I am reviewing documents in the office. What brings you here? Li Jinkang gritted his teeth and whispered, "Come down and talk. I'm in Director Zhang's office. What blew me here, wasn't it the evil spirit of your Jinhai Land and Resources Bureau? Ishizun. I'll be there soon." When Director Zhang heard the word mayor on the phone, his face turned pale and he didn't care about anything. Mayor, you are Li Shizun. Li Jinkang also lit a cigarette at this time. The Jinjiang tobacco fermented in his throat. Li Jinkang felt more uncomfortable than having the grass on his ancestral grave pulled out. He took one dry puff after another, swallowing his saliva. In just 1 minute, the director of the Jinhai Land and Resources Bureau rushed down and immediately came to Li Jinkang and said, "Mayor, your subordinate greets you." "I'm nothing." Li Jinkang shouted, "Come, meet your director Zhang first. Little classmate in the back, go get me the documents related to the land approval from Dahao and the documents related to the bidding." Yes. When the students behind heard this, they hurried over. At this time, although Director Wang was fussing and glaring, he actually bowed and chuckled, "Director Zhang, I greet Director Zhang." Chapter 76, the beginning of the high-end game. Director Zhang's legs went weak, and he fell to his knees, grabbing Li Jinkang's thighs and yelling, "Mr. Mayor. I know I was wrong, I really know I was wrong. Our old man, Zhang Yihai, used to be Mr. Li's secretary. Please forgive me this time." Li Jinkang was stunned for a moment. Then he swung his hand and gave himself a big pocket. Although Director Wang looked shy and didn't say anything, Li Jinkang understood everything. Although Director Zhang is of a lower rank, he has a long career in the Jinhai Land and Resources Bureau and is also the deputy director. Director Wang, who is above him, is a young rookie with good ability, but he has only been in office for 2 or 3 years. If we want to eradicate the evil, our strength is a bit embarrassing. Just at this time, the relevant documents were submitted. I have to say that Li Jinkang is definitely capable. He just flipped through the thick document, and it even seemed like he didn't read it carefully. But in just 3 minutes, he didn't seem to miss even one of the names. He gritted his teeth and said, Lao Zhang, what can I say about you? Damn it, your nephew opened a shell company with a registered capital of only 10 million. How dare you hand over a project worth more than 1 billion to him? You really used this little power to your advantage. This red stamp, really stamped on my face, Li Jinkang. Municipal Lord, I was wrong, Municipal Lord. Li Jinkang sighed, stood up and patted Director Wang on the shoulder, saying, roll up your sleeves and clean up the Jinhai Land and Resources Bureau. I'm your backup this time. You have to understand, let alone being a secretary to the old man, even if the old man comes in person and makes a mistake, he will be punished as well. Do you understand? I, Li Jinkang, will personally write a self-review to my superiors about this matter. From the top down, even the clerks, they must put the self-review on my desk so that I can read it in person. What is Majesty? Jiang Yuming thought he was usually quite impressive, but when he saw Li Jinkang's performance, he realized how fragile he was. Then he looked at Xu Wenping, who was lighting a cigarette with his head down, and he realized how powerful the boss he had found this time was. At this moment, it can be said that the wrath came like thunder. But Xu Wenping's performance was like the clear light of the river and the sea, his edge was restrained and not revealed. It was in sharp contrast to the image of the so-called rich second generation just now. Li Jingkang left like the wind, without any regrets. Xu Wenping and Jiang Yuming also followed behind. In the office, Director Wang smiled bitterly and said, "Chief Zhang, I have no way to persuade you gently. It seems that you have really met a tough opponent this time. Oh, by the way, that young man just now." As soon as Director Wang asked the question, Director Zhang's face suddenly turned pale, with mixed emotions. He gritted his teeth and said, "Oh, why didn't I think of it? He's so young and yet he's the chairman of Dehao Group, and is still so arrogant in front of me. I should have thought of it earlier. Alas! One misstep will lead to eternal regret." Director Wang only smiled bitterly and shook his head when faced with Director Zhang's refusal to repent. "Director Zhang, you deserve to die. If you listen to me, I'll just discipline you. This time I don't have any reason to let you go. When the Li family was prosperous, they were only half a step away from the pinnacle of power. Use your shitty brain to think about it. Can Li Shizuan be limited to being the lord of a city? Even if Li Shizuan can only be the lord of a province in this life, it would be considered that the family has fallen into decline. Just eyeing that little bit of profit. What can I say about you?" Director Zhang was slightly stunned, and although he suddenly realized what was going on, it was too late. Working with Li Jingkang meant the biggest transfer and the fastest promotion. Anyone with a good vision would have seen this opportunity long ago. If he had the chance to become a deputy mayor in this lifetime, what would be wrong with him, as Director Wang, smoking Jinjiang cigarettes for the rest of his life? Some people can't see through it. At this moment, Li Jingkang and others had already gone out. Jiang Yuming followed behind, while Li Jingkang kept walking and actually walked with Xu Wenping. "Xiaoshu, I made you laugh at me today. Let's agree that you must not go and tell the old man about this." After Li Jingkang came out, he immediately put on a smiling face again. Xu Wenping smiled bitterly and said, "What are you talking about?" "Well." Li Jingkang sighed and said, "Although I have some ability, the old man has too much hope in me. Actually, let me tell you the truth. I still have a long way to go to clean up the internal affairs. This Jinhai city has already gone rotten. You want to deal with a few senior officials. But the top beams of Jinhai city are all straight, but the bottom beams are always crooked. I have dealt with people like Director Zhang batch after batch. When they see superiors like us, they flatter us and make things difficult for the small businesses below them every day. Since I took office, I have focused on people's livelihood and neglected business development. But which is more important? You can understand something, right?" Xu Wenping was in high spirits and said, "I have some understanding. The most important thing is to unite with the masses and not to be separated from them. Although I am engaged in business, I don't have such a broad concept of business. Uncle Li, now that we've come to this, if there's anything I can do to serve the people of Jinhai City, I'll do my best to help. If there's any need, I'm especially willing to do my best." Li Jingkang raised his eyebrows, then smiled and said, "My judgment of people is still not as accurate as yours. I always think that you are too impetuous when you are young. That being said, go to the city government tomorrow and invest 200 million in the orphanage project. I won't pay you back a penny of this money. You will have to invest another 300 million later." Xu Wenping nodded happily and turned around and said, "Did you hear that? Yuming?" "Yes. Chairman." Jiang Yuming was more excited today than any other day. Not to mention the Dehao Group, Xu Wenping's current balance is enough to invest the 500 million yuan, not to mention the pharmaceutical company he just acquired. Investment and dedication are the way of great business. Hearing Xu Wenping's straightforward agreement, Li Zhenghao's eyes flashed with surprise. Before getting in the car, he patted Xu Wenping on the shoulder with emotion and said, "I asked you to treat me to this meal today, and it also made me, Li, a net profit of 500 million. Xiaoshu. You have a much bigger vision than those old-timers. Har har." In Uncle Li's words, "As long as I have the ability, I will serve the people without hesitation." "Uncle Li, I was just pretending. My father is your father's bodyguard, so of course I will do my best to serve you, uncle." Fart. Li Jingkang rolled his eyes and said, "There's no need to be polite about our relationship. If my father doesn't marry my daughter to you, we can be friends as equals. Just call me Brother Li." Forehead. "If I get married, I'll have to change the way I address you. Har har har, it's a blessing to have a close friend." Chapter 77. They are all big guys. Li Shizuan, chairman, this way. The car passed through the alley and came to the door of a coastal restaurant. The environment was very elegant and simple. The wooden door was low-key and restrained, with the words, Dalong Restaurant. The names are quite simple. Li Shizuan raised his eyebrows slightly, and as he walked in, he turned to his assistant and said, "Have all the people who are coming been notified? After all, we are not prepared in time enough. Go and get a cup of tea first, and we will wait for a while." "Don't worry, City Honor. They've been notified." Li Jinkang was preparing here, while Xu Wenping on the other side was also a little strange. He could never have imagined that there was such an ordinary restaurant on this coastal road. It even seemed a little narrow. After entering their house, apart from the simple booths, there was only a large private room. Xu Wenping saw the excitement in Jiang Yueming's eyes. He leaned over and before he could ask, Jiang Yuming whispered, "Chairman, this restaurant is our own business, but I registered it under the name of Assistant Gao Chong. It was originally for emergency use, but I didn't expect it would really come in handy one day." Xu Wenping raised his eyebrows slightly. "It's true. The layout of this place is just that of a mid to low-end restaurant. It's better than letting Li Jinkang, a down-to-earth city lord, go to those extravagant and luxurious places in big hotels. But there is a huge parking lot in front, so even if there are 40 or 50 cars, it won't seem crowded." Just as the few people stepped in, a low-key Volkswagen parked as far back as possible. A middle-aged man in a suit and tie got out and bowed to Li Shizuan from a distance. Just as he was about to wait a little, he looked up and saw Jiang Yuming, and asked in surprise, "Xiao Jiang? Why are you here too?" There was some surprise in his tone, and at the same time, some interrogation of Jiang Yuming. Obviously, even the president of Dehao Group should not be able to attend a meeting of this level. Jiang Yuming didn't feel humiliated at all. Instead, he looked very happy and quickly stepped forward to shake hands and said, "Hello, President Du. Of course I am not qualified to sit with you. I am here to accompany our chairman." As he spoke, Jiang Yuming secretly gave him a look. Du Jinglong looked over and saw Xu Wenping sitting opposite Li Jinkang. A look of surprise flashed across his eyes. First, he was surprised at Xu Wenping's youth. Second, he was surprised that, while sitting opposite Li Jinkang, both Xu Wenping and Li Jinkang had cigarettes burning in their hands, looking relaxed and without any pressure. Hiss. Du Jinglong took a deep breath and leaned close to Jiang Yueming's ear and said, "Is this the chairman who bought Tongrun Equipment? Tongrun Equipment has had 8 consecutive daily limit increases. I'm afraid it's just as he said. Who is this gentleman? What is his relationship with Li Shizuan?" Jiang Yuming was slightly stunned, then he smiled bitterly, leaned close to Du Jinglong's ear and said, "I don't know the details, but they are like brothers, and it seems that they are going to marry their daughter off or something. Anyway, it should be good." Du Jinglong's expression was uncertain, while Jiang Yuming looked very proud. Seeing this, Du Jinglong was also happy for Jiang Yuming and said with a smile, "Boy, this is a chance for you to make great success. Xiaodu. What are you doing? Why are you laughing so happily?" At this moment, a casual voice was heard outside, and it turned out that 2 old men and a middle-aged man walked closer. One of the 2 old men had a goatee and was limping with a cane in his hand, with the temperament of an old Buddha, but the cane was covered with starch and there was some dirt on the cuffs. The other one, however, was dressed strangely, wearing large green shorts, flip-flops, a greasy face and a slicked back hair. The one asking the question was the fashionable old man in flip-flops. Du Jinglong's face lit up and he quickly bowed to greet him, saying, "President Kong, Master Budo, Master Long. Hello." The 2 old men seemed very relaxed, but the middle-aged man was the leader among the 3. He looked like a typical science and engineering man, with a stern face and seemed ignorant of the ways of the world. Okay. Oh, we old guys have delayed too long and made the city master wait here?" As they were talking, a huge group of people were already pouring in from outside. At this moment, Li Shizuan also stood up and chuckled, It's okay. Xiaoshu is their host today, and I'll invite everyone to have a simple meal. I hope you can forgive me if I'm bothering you. Although it may not be a big honor, it may allow Li Jinkang to say a few polite words. It can be seen that these people who came are all very prestigious in Jinhai City. Xu Wenping was a little nervous when he suddenly experienced this situation, so he quickly picked up the cigarettes in his hand and started distributing them. The old man called Buddha immediately raised his eyebrows and smiled. Young man, you are very good. You have learned to offer cigarettes at such a young age. Then I, an old man, will take advantage of my age and smoke one. Har har. Lord Long is not old at all, he looks very energetic. Li Jinping led the way into the room, and everyone began to take their seats. The former took Xu Wenping to sit in the deputy's position, and the first person on the right was Mr. Kong, followed by Master Fu and Master Long, and 3 or 5 more people came behind, making a total of less than 10 people. After taking his seat, Li Jinping smiled with a sigh and said, Alas! You are all the elites of our Jinhai industry and commerce. I, Li, have neglected you all since I took office. I would like to apologize to you all today. In response to this polite remark, no one would be so unkind as to say, it's okay. Everyone was quietly waiting for Li Jinping to speak. But now I have to ask about it. I found that in our Jinhai, there are still problems of corruption and bribery, which has caused considerable resistance to the elites in the business community. Although people's livelihood is a big issue, economic development is still the core concept and cannot be neglected. The main reason I brought you all together today is to discuss the work style issues of those cadres who take bribes and do things secretly. The other thing is to share what we have and help each other. Only when the industrial and commercial circles of Jinhai City unite can we achieve results. In short, working together to develop Jinhai City is my personal guiding principle. Dear elders, you all have connections below. I have also read your information, so I won't introduce you in detail. Today, I will introduce you to this rising business star in Jinhai City, who is also a close friend of mine, Li. The chairman of Dahao Group, Mr. Xu Wenping. After a long speech, a few words fell loudly, and everyone applauded enthusiastically and gave Xu Wenping a kind smile. Afterwards, the speeches became more enthusiastic. Everyone introduced themselves one by one. Xu Wenping analyzed them in detail and understood the power of these people in front of him. Chapter 78 Entering the Top Stream. There is no doubt that at this table, where even the bank president Du Jinglong can only sit at the end and remain silent, sits half of the entire Jinhai City's industrial and commercial circles. As for the remaining half, it is the individual industries and commerce with a huge mass base that constitute the characteristics of the development of the Great Dragon Country, carrying the consumption problems of the middle and lower classes of Jinhai. Then comes the part of eating and drinking. It's no wonder that Jiang Yueming's restaurant is mainly people-friendly, but the quality is very high and everyone praises it. As for Erguitu, these businessmen don't seem to have any pressure when drinking it, and they are more relaxed than usual. Li Jinping just entertained a circle of people with wine, then stood up, put on his clothes, picked up a glass of wine and said, Everyone, I still have some small things to deal with, so I won't delay your business exchanges. I'll take my leave first. Okay, Li Shizuan, we will definitely follow your will and give more opportunities for vigorous development to young people. Yes. I, Aaron, am old too. I have already retired and have not been concerned about my career for many years. Li Shizuan, please take care. Li Jinping nodded slightly, and as he saw them off, he gestured to Xu Wenping. When the others wanted to follow him out, Li Jinping had already closed the door. As they walked, Li Jinping smiled and said, Jinhai City is only this big. President Kong is the president of our Jinhai Chamber of Commerce. He is from one of the 4 major families in the provincial capital. However, he is also a humble and kind person, so there is no need to worry about it. I will help you deal with the cadre matters. You must cherish this opportunity and strive to create greater achievements. Yes, Brother Li. When answering, it was not known whether Li Jinping did it on purpose or it had become a habit. He just reached the door and finished his words. He chuckled and nodded to Xu Wenping, motioning him to go back. Xu Wenping turned around slightly strangely, and a friendly smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. It seems that with Li Jinping's guidance, he easily became the top star in Jinhai City. These current entrepreneurs probably have huge resources not only in Jinhai City, but also in the entire East Province, and with just a few words from Li Jinping, so many experts present at the occasion seemed to think Xu Wenping was the best. So scary. But think about it, being personally named by Li Jinping and even inviting businessmen for this purpose, it is obviously a huge honor. Xu Wenping went into the room to wash his hands. When he turned around, he saw Du Jinglong behind him. When he saw Xu Wenping turning around, Du Jinglong immediately bowed deeply and said, Mr. Xu, I'm Du Jinglong. I'm the president of Ruerue Bank. Mr. Du, hello. Du Jinglong shook hands with Xu Wenping with a little excitement and said, I have had business cooperation with Yu Ming before. It is really an honor to meet you now. Although my power is small, if the Dahao Group needs it, I am still willing to do my best to help with a little money. Thank you so much, President Du. Xu Wenping also showed a fake smile on his face. Du Jinglong came up just to make himself familiar. If it weren't for his relationship with Jiang Yuming, Du Jinglong might not even be able to clink glasses with Xu Wenping at the end of the drinking party. At this time, he had achieved his wish and was led by Xu Wenping, who said, We will talk about business matters slowly. Today, we will focus on drinking. Come on, go in and sit down. Seeing the two people walk in with smiles on their faces, the unnoticed President Du seemed to be favored. After Mayor Li left this time, in addition to drinking, everyone gradually talked about the problems of the Dahao Group. After Li Jingkang named Xu Wenping, the position of this upstart had been decided. There may have been some friction in the business, but at this time, everyone present was willing to make concessions. In fact, there are many things that Xu Wenping himself doesn't know at all. However, facing their thank you gifts, Xu Wenping accepted them all with a smile. Several elders expressed their desire to introduce the younger generations to Xu Wenping. At this time, he of course readily agreed and said that he would talk about it later. After a heavy drinking session until late in the evening, Xu Wenping's gait became a little unsteady. He managed to stay sober for a while before walking out of the bustling place and asking Jiao Chong to take him back to the flat. Xu Wenping staggered into their house. Why are you so drunk? When Su Yurou stuck her head out, she seemed to be changing clothes, but not outer clothes, but underwear. This piece of underwear was definitely new and Xu Wenping had never seen it in Su Yurou's closet. It was still black, with lace trimmed with butterfly wings, and a thong underneath, which did not cover her completely, revealing her pinkness. Su Yurou had a bit of shyness on her face, and she showed it off. It seems to be saying, is it sexy? Xu Wenping had been drinking and was a little drunk. When he saw Su Yurou's beautiful appearance, he could no longer hold back. He quickly took off his clothes and rushed towards Su Yurou. Su Yurou blushed, and indeed she was not angry at all. Her brother smiled, dodged and said, he, who would want to play with you when you reek of alcohol? R. Unfortunately, she was caught by Xu Wenping the next moment and pressed on the sofa. Looking at Su Yurou's charming face, Xu Wenping laughed and said, How can I resist wearing this? Blame yourself for being too beautiful. Don't R. Feeling Xu Wenping's dominance after drinking, some cells in Su Yurou's heart seemed to be stimulated. Instead of feeling that Xu Wenping was cruel, she felt that Xu Wenping was more manly. Her whole body softened and she huddled down under Xu Wenping like a kitten, with a hint of reluctance in her pitiful eyes, and her sweet tongue, like a peony petal, immediately wrapped around him. Wenping, you are so strong, Su Yurou was finally picked up again. It was a desire that existed in her soul, but with Xu Wenping's powerful singing, Su Yurou was overwhelmed by the river until the river backflowed. She couldn't help but shed shyness on her red lips. After tossing and turning until late at night, Xu Wenping finally sobered up. Looking at Su Yurou, who looked so delicate and miserable, he suddenly came to his senses, strengthened himself, and finally had an orgasm. Well, Wenping, you have to marry a second wife, like the Australian gambling king, he has 7 or 8 wives. If you do this, you're going to kill me. Xu Wenping blushed and said, then I should be more restrained. No. This is not good for your health. Su Yurou blushed, her eyes flickered as she spoke, I want it, but not that much. I don't care, I'll take care of Yu Youling's affairs, and if it's not enough, I'll find another one. Without waiting for Xu Wenping's answer, she fell asleep in Xu Wenping's arms like a kitten, closing her eyes and falling asleep. Chapter 79, It's a Treat for the Eyes. The next morning, Xu Wenping got up as usual, exercised and had breakfast according to his biological clock. Su Yurou slept until early morning and only got up when the sun was shining on her butt. Xu Wenping didn't disturb her and went out by himself. As soon as I sat down on the sofa, Jiang Yuming called. Yuming, how are you? Jiang Yuming said excitedly, the situation is very good. All the obstacles encountered by our Dahao group have been eliminated overnight, and there is even the possibility of moving to a higher level. If you are willing to choose to go public, I can turn Dahao into a Fortune 500 company within half a year. Are you stupid, or am I stupid? Xu Wenping rolled his eyes and retorted directly. Everyone thinks that listed companies are awesome. Actually, they are a little awesome, but not much. Companies that are truly well run and can make a lot of money have always made a lot of money quietly. After going public, with state supervision and the increase of shareholders, all kinds of things will become uncontrollable. If Xu Wenping had not intended to run away with the money, he would never have chosen to go public. Jiang Yuming chuckled upon hearing this and said, "The funds promised to Mr. Li have already been given to the municipal government's poverty alleviation office. I plan not to set an upper limit on your decision. We will give the poverty alleviation office whatever it wants. Yeah. Here, don't worry about the money." Jiang Yuming nodded slightly, then turned serious again and said, "Although most of the news is good news, I also discovered a detail. After yesterday's cocktail party, President Kong directly reduced the efficiency of his company's shipments by half. Based on my years of business acumen, he seems to be leaving." Xu Wenping immediately became interested in the question Jiang Yuming asked. After all, Xu Wenping was not as good as Jiang Yuming in business management, so he hurriedly asked, "Tell me about it in detail." "Good." Jiang Yuming sorted out the relationship and said, "Although President Kong is known as a Confucian businessman, he actually does not have strong management ability. He is just one of the 4 major families in the provincial capital, and the Kong's pharmaceutical company in Jinhai is also a branch of the provincial capital. Kong's pharmaceutical company does not operate large-scale equipment, but in terms of basic medicines, it occupies about 30% of all medical institutions in Jinhai City. I'm just guessing. If President Kong runs away, the medical care in Jinhai City will definitely be greatly affected. Medical care is very important in the work for the people. I'm afraid Li Shizuan will. Is it necessary to do this? He makes his own money. We at the Hao Group don't have any medical projects either." Xu Wenping understood as soon as he heard it. "But then I felt it was strange. The factory was built here with great difficulty, and the market was opened with great difficulty. Business is not about carders, and not everyone has a single job. No matter who becomes the top star, everyone will make their own money. Once you leave, Jinhai City may not be in a good situation for a month or two, but then medical companies will spring up like mushrooms after a rain to fill this gap, which will be even more damaging to your Kong's pharmaceutical." Jiang Yuming chuckled and said, "So I said it was just a guess. It could also be that they are not doing a good job of management. Anyway, although I haven't had any contact with them, I heard from President to that Chairman Kong is a very petty person. Okay? I'll pay attention." Both of them were just guessing, and Xu Wenping didn't take it to heart. He just thought about it and realized that if it was any other industry, he would still be a little worried. If there was a gap in the medical industry, he still had a company that he hadn't taken over, plus he had medical skills. It seems there is no need to be afraid. Well, there is no need to be afraid at all. After thinking it over, Xu Wenping was about to speak, but he heard Jiang Yuming laughing again. "By the way, he. Chairman, I heard that we have acquired the land of the film and television base, and there are many internet celebrities, models, stars and directors who want to cooperate with us. The company is quite cheerful today. We are planning to hold a pre-recruitment meeting. The identity of the main interviewer has not been decided yet." Hearing the hint in Jiang Yuming's words, Xu Wenping smiled slightly. Har, I understand. Of course, I should also fulfill my obligations in the company's problems. I'll come over in person later, okay? Okay, Chairman. When Xu Wenping heard Jiang Yuming's hint just now, he felt warm in his heart. Although he thought about what happened on the cruise ship that day, he wondered if he would be disappointed if he went. But I also hold a lucky mentality. What if you want to be disappointed and really miss out on such a beautiful girl? Just go and have a look, it's good to feast your eyes. Wearing an executive jacket and carrying a thermos cup, he went downstairs and drove into the Lamborghini. The accelerator rumbled, but he drove out of the underground parking lot slowly and gently, heading towards the Emgrand Group. Chapter 80, Fun. Holding a thermos cup in his hand, Xu Wenping entered the main gate. Those who attended the pre-employment meeting all entered through the side door, but Xu Wenping had to go to the front desk to get his interviewer ID card. Although he had only been here once, the sharp-eyed receptionist seemed to have remembered his identity and behaved very respectfully. Casually kicking his work badge into his front pocket, Xu Wenping came to the job fair on the 3rd floor. At this moment, many people gathered in the narrow corridor, some tall, some slim, some new faces, some familiar faces. It's true that the quality is much higher than that on the cruise ship. Among them is a tall beauty who is putting on makeup. She stands out in the crowd. Although she is 5 points more decorated and 8 points less natural than Su Yurou, Yu Youling and others, she is still among the beauties. That woman should still be a second-tier female star. Xu Wenping was in the mood for a walk, so he was naturally not in a hurry like the others. But at this moment, he heard the sound of high heels tapping behind him. As soon as their voice became confused, Xu Wenping saw a figure approaching and subconsciously reached out to support her. "Are you okay, pretty girl?" Although the smell of cheap perfume was a bit pungent, and Xu Wenping was a bit surprised to see the face covered with white powder, he still asked politely. "Are you blind? You're standing in front of me like a wooden stake. Are you going to kill me by falling?" This woman had a very bad temper and she yelled at Xu Wenping angrily. If Xu Wenping had not dodged in time, her spittle would have splashed on his face. Xu Wenping looked at the woman again. She had a bun on her hair and wore a black jacket with a very strange tights underneath. She also wore black fishnet stockings and high heels. She looked extremely hot. Her figure was excellent, but her face was covered with white powder, as if the makeup didn't work. Even though Xu Wenping was a small driver, he couldn't tell what this woman's foundation was like. "What are you looking at? Have you never seen a beautiful woman? Do you know how much this dress of mine is worth? If it gets damaged, can you afford to pay for it? Have you seen Shanbaoli's watch? Really? It's so unlucky to go out. I see garbage everywhere I go." As the beauty spoke, she rushed to the front, but before she could enter the interview room, she was driven out by the security guard. She stomped her feet dejectedly, picked up a cigarette, and went to the corridor to smoke it. Ding! Enraged host. You dare to provoke the host when you encounter wildflowers and weeds when you go out? You should be punished, right? Choose to activate. First, great love is speechless. A benevolent and righteous attitude will allow the host to tolerate the sand in his eyes and let this woman go. Reward, a copy of the Saint's Handbook. Second, a small punishment, a big warning. Give this girl a little warning, so that she will be more careful in the future. Reward, a Huarqiangbi electronic watch. Third, sudden evil taste. This woman is a gold digger. Please find a way to spend her balance, and then abandon him to make him feel the dangers of society. Reward, a tumbler with a high drinking capacity, and full level tasting of various beverages. The system is monitoring. It has detected that this woman's balance plus credit overdraft totals 30,000. Good job. You old evil system, you have no intention of letting me choose at all. But it was obviously just a small task, and the only tempting reward was the alcohol tumbler and drink tasting, which was actually dispensable. Although Xu Wenping's alcohol tolerance is not very strong, normal social activities are not too difficult for him. Of course, it would be nice if I could get a reward, but why should I spend all of other people's money? Just at this moment, Xu Wenping's front pocket was not securely fastened and his work badge fell to the ground. When he picked it up, Xu Wenping felt amused. He picked it up and hung it in front of his chest, and then he felt countless gazes on him. The 4 big words, interview director, on his name card seemed to have a strange charm, and many girls looked at him with much gentler eyes. There is even a hint of admiration. Among them was the fiery woman who had just scolded him, but her look was not one of envy. Her hand trembled, the cigarette but fell to the ground, and she wiped her eyes. Suddenly, her look became panic-stricken. What to do? Offended the interview director before even entering the door? But when their eyes met, the girl only saw Xu Wenping's warm and gentle smile. When Xu Wenping walked over, the girl's legs went limp and she almost fell to the ground in fear. She didn't dare to say a word, but Xu Wenping hooked his hand around her waist and said with a smile, "You're quite interesting. What's your name?" Even from a distance, he could feel the girl's heavy breathing, and even a hint of redness in her eyes. She said softly, "Liang Feiyan. Okay, come in first." Me. Liang Feiyan pointed at herself excitedly, and then woke up and said, but, interviewer, I just scolded you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. If I knew you were the interviewer, I would definitely. Interviewer? Xu Wenping deliberately showed a hint of disdain, and when he picked up the thermos, he inadvertently revealed the key to his Lamborghini. Sure enough, this sharp-eyed gold digger discovered it. Her eyes lit up, as if she had discovered a new world. Come in first. Xu Wenping walked slowly into the interview hall. As he entered the door, he smiled and said to everyone, "Sorry, please wait a moment." Then I entered the interview hall. This interview hall is naturally equipped with a screen substitute and a full range of musical instruments. Xu Wenping walked in front and Liang Feiyan followed behind. Seeing him enter, Jiang Yuming, who was dozing off, suddenly perked up and stood up. Then, several other department heads also stood up. "Hello, Chairman." Jiang Yuming nodded gently and said, "Everyone, please sit down." By the way, with a slight hint, he extended his arm towards Liang Feiyan, and Liang Feiyan carefully hooked her arm around Xu Wenping's. Seeing Xu Wenping turning around and smiling gently, Liang Feiyan immediately raised her head and chest, and became proud. Chapter 81 Panic. Jiang Yuming had a smile on his face, but he was slightly surprised when he saw Liang Feiyan behind Xu Wenping. He lowered his head to take a look. The girl seemed to have a really good figure. Wearing high heels, she was even a head taller than Xu Wenping. She had a pair of long legs in fishnet lining, which could also be said to be very good. But the problem is that this outfit is a patchwork of various fake brands, and it is so vulgar that anyone with a discerning eye can see through it. Plus the layer of powder on her face obscures the woman's true appearance. Oh, it seems a bit ugly, right? However, seeing Xu Wenping smile, Jiang Yuming naturally had no objection. Instead, he quietly arranged a chair for this lady, next to the chairman. Liang Feiyan held her head high and chest puffed out. She was indeed brainless. She was instantly very proud and whispered in Xu Wenping's ear, "Husband, your subordinates are quite sensible." The word husband shocked Xu Wenping so much that his whole body went numb. However, thinking of the system's tempting rewards, he leaned close to Liang Feiyan's ear and said, "I don't think they are as sensible as you. How about we go out and play? Sitting here is boring." Liang Feiyan was stunned for a moment when she heard this. Then she realized that she was here for an interview. Then she saw the respectful looks of the people in front of her, and then looked at the handsome Xu Wenping beside her. She thought to herself, "I am already the chairman's wife, why am I still having an interview?" Okay. Liang Feiyan smiled sweetly. Jiang Yuming certainly had no objection. After watching Xu Wenping leave, he went upstairs to do other things. It was just a pre-recruitment meeting, and if Xu Wenping hadn't come, he wouldn't have bothered to go downstairs. Sure enough, being handsome and rich is a big plus. As the two of them walked down the stairs, Xu Wenping felt that Liang Feiyan was eager to hand him over to her in the corridor, and her every move was full of temptation. When they arrived at the parking lot, Xu Wenping opened his car. When the headlights flashed, Liang Feiyan's eyes were full of stars. She stood up and kissed Xu Wenping on the face in surprise, saying, "Honey, is this your car? It's so handsome. I want to take a picture." Liang Feiyan rushed towards the car, while Xu Wenping took a tissue and wiped his face repeatedly. Oh my god, the lipstick was fading. Liang Feiyan's bag was like a treasure box. He took out a selfie stick from it, stretched it out, and quickly took a few pictures. When he was about to pull Xu Wenping to take pictures together, he found that Xu Wenping had already got into the car. Liang Feiyan also got in the car to take pictures. Xu Wenping swiped his phone a few times, thinking about how to spend all of Liang Feiyan's balance. Although it was only about 20,000 or 30,000 yuan, he had to think of some high-end options if he wanted to spend it all in one go. As soon as he browsed the hotel page, Xu Wenping's eyes lit up. "Feiyang, how about I take you to the beach to play?" "Okay, husband." After making a happy decision, Xu Wenping drove his Lamborghini directly into the Haoxing Seaside Garden Hotel, an industry of the Haoxing Group. The real person in charge was none other than Mr. Long, whom he had met that day. As for Xu Wenping himself, after the Erguitu banquet last night, there are not many places where he can really spend money in Jinhai City. It seems that there is still a gold-plated business card of Mr. Long in his handbag, which can be swiped when he walks into any industry of Haoxing. It has to be said that for people like them, money doesn't mean much anymore, but the face gained by not spending money is still very pleasing. Wow! This is the Haoxing Seaside Garden Hotel. The only 5-star seaside hotel in Jinhai City. It's so spacious and prosperous. As soon as Liang Feiyan entered, she started posing for photos without paying any attention to the eyes of the people around her. Although Xu Wenping was embarrassed, he endured it for the sake of the system reward. "Feiyang, do you have your ID card with you?" "I brought it." Liang Feiyan seemed to have no ulterior motives and immediately handed over her ID card. Xu Wenping was pleased and immediately came to the counter and whispered, "Gulf Presidential Set. Sir, the presidential suite needs to be booked." "Yes, sir." The receptionist didn't finish her words until she saw Xu Wenping showing Mr. Long's business card. She was no longer surprised. When they were checking in, Xu Wenping leaned over and whispered, "It's not considered a hospitality. It's charged. Do you understand?" Although the receptionist was surprised, she nodded. "I'll pay you by the hour. For hours, 30,000 when we settle the bill." "Hey man, have you figured out how much money it will cost?" However, since the business card has been shown, the front desk will still comply even if Xu Wenping makes a more rude request. At this time, Liang Feiyan also finished taking pictures and said, "Are you done, husband?" "All right." Xu Wenping took the room card and ID card, went over to hold Liang Feiyan's hand, showed an admiring expression, and walked along the staircase corridor. The corridor was lit by light all the way, and when you get to the end, the presidential manor suddenly appears before your eyes. Liang Yuyan's eyes were filled with an innocent smile when she saw this. She immediately handed the phone to Xu Wenping, and sat down next to the swimming pool, saying, "Honey, take a picture of me. Make it look good." Xu Wenping deliberately showed an uncomfortable expression. Liang Feiyan immediately stood up, took Xu Wenping's hand and shook it, saying, "Okay, baby. I will serve you well later." This girl is really not shy when she talks. Seeing that she is about to kiss him again, Xu Wenping dodged and said, Okay, I'll take a picture for you." Xu Wenping took a few photos casually. Liang Feiyan, who came over, was not satisfied, but that was it. Xu Wenping specially opened a bottle of red wine and clinked glasses to kill time. When it was almost time, Xu Wenping asked impatiently, "Little darling, do you want to take a bath?" "Okay, I'll go take a shower." Liang Feiyan was very open, and when Yang took off her vest in front of Xu Wenping, and then took off the tights underneath. It's true that Liang Feiyan's waistlines are like deadly scimitars. Although her breasts are not big, they are very firm, like two ripe peaches. Her skin is not white and tender, but a healthier light brown color, and her charm is more obvious. Looking at his abdominal muscles, they are not the false bulges from fitness training, but are healthy, smooth and firm. He must have a very rich interest in sports. She is so hypocritical. How come this gold digger looks like an athlete? You know what, her hot temper doesn't seem like that of an ordinary girl. As soon as she took off the little clothes, Xu Wenping began to have some doubts. What did Liang Feiyan look like under that thick layer of white powder and light brown skin? However, this thought just flashed through his mind before Xu Wenping gave up. Leaving the room card and ID card on the table, Xu Wenping slipped out of the hotel quietly. There was the sound of running water coming from the bathroom. Chapter 82, mentioned again. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the selection. You will be rewarded with 1,000 cups without getting drunk and full level tasting of various beverages. When the system prompt sounded, Xu Wenping's mood suddenly became better. He looked back at the hotel, and a hint of suspicion emerged in his expression. Although there are many suspicious points about Liang Feiyan, she is indeed a materialistic and self-deprecating woman, so Xu Wenping will not have any psychological burden. The car drove out not far when Xu Wenping's phone rang. Looking at the incoming call message, Xu Wenping raised his eyebrows and a hint of surprise appeared at the corner of his mouth. Ding ding tilde tilde. Liang Feiyan was also very bold. After taking a shower, she lay in the comfortable bathtub, thinking about various things in her mind, and fell asleep unconsciously. I can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Hee. Isn't it just a matter of fighting for opportunities to get into the entertainment industry? With my looks, Liang Feiyan, it would be that difficult to find a rich man to support me. Liang Feiyan never thought that Xu Wenping would leave. First of all, she didn't notice the horrible look of her makeup, and naturally she thought, since Xu Wenping had called her here and didn't do anything, why would he leave? It was not until the beeping sound at the door that Liang Feiyan woke up and said to herself, "Here I come." She came out wrapped in a bath towel, looked around but couldn't see Xu Wenping. A dull look flashed in her eyes, and she poked her head to look at the bathroom in the bedroom. The light in the bedroom was dim. Liang Feiyan's heart started to panic, and at this moment, the doorbell was pressed again. Here it comes. He went out. Liang Feiyan's heart moved, but when she opened the door, she saw a gentle and professional smile. The room manager smiled and said, "Hello, your hourly room time has expired. Do you want to renew it?" Hourly renewal. Liang Feiyan looked shocked and said, "Wasn't there a man when he came in just now? The one driving the Lamborghini, my boyfriend, didn't he pay?" Liang Feiyan seemed very shocked, but the room manager still had a professional smile on his face and said, "You haven't paid yet. If you want to renew your lease tomorrow, you will need to pay 100,000 yuan, including the deposit. It's so expensive, why don't you just rob it?" Liang Feiyan was suddenly a little angry. The room manager smiled and said, "Our rooms are all clearly priced, and the one you are staying in is an internal suite of our hotel that is not open to the public." At this point, a strange look flashed in the room manager's eyes. He looked Liang Feiyan up and down, and then whispered, "Priceless. It means that if your husband is here, we won't charge you. But your boyfriend has made special arrangements. When the time comes, he will ask you to pay 30,000 yuan. Liang Feiyan was slightly startled. Suddenly, Xu Wenping's gentle and sunny smile flashed through her mind. His edge was restrained, and he was neither arrogant nor impetuous. He also thought about how he had scolded Xu Wenping today. Connected. "You want me to pay 30,000 yuan before I can leave?" Liang Feiyan took out her mobile phone, took a look at her balance, then took out her credit card and stood blankly in front of the door. She suddenly felt her blood rushing and her head felt dizzy. He was deliberately playing a prank on me. Would you like to call your boyfriend or pay? I made a damn phone call. How would I know someone's phone number? Although Liang Feiyan was furious, she was too irritable and felt a sense of desolation in her heart. She showed her payment code and paid more than 10,000 yuan first, then took out her credit card and barely raised 29,800 yuan. A set of bags, wow, there is exactly 200 yuan left in the bag. Thank you for your stay, I wish you a happy life, welcome to visit next time. Can I change my clothes? Liang Feiyan's voice was a little hoarse, and she was obviously too angry. The room manager naturally didn't say much. Liang Feiyan changed her clothes and walked out of the hotel in a daze. There were few taxis on the coastal highway. She was wearing high heels and there was no prospect of seeing the beautiful scenery nearby. As we were walking, the phone rang. "Hey, oh my, stop hitting me. Feiyan, my Feiyan, where are you? Come and save daddy. If daddy doesn't pay me back, they will kill me." I heard a noisy voice inside, but it seemed a little fake, as if someone next to me was whispering, "Lao Liang, can you still cheat money? If you don't have money, leave the table and let others come up to be the banker, and you will be finished if you follow the bet." Liang Feiyan's body trembled, and she picked up the phone and shouted angrily, "You want to force me to death, right? Don't you want your daughter to live? Where can I get you money? You just want money that much, right? I'll go out and work as a prostitute and earn you some money, okay?" "Okay, daughter, what are you talking about? Working as a prostitute? Don't, with your looks, it's a waste to work as a prostitute." Liang Feiyan was about to burst into tears, and punched the tree next to her hard. Her delicate hand was covered in blood, but she seemed to feel no pain. However, a layer of the tree's hard bark was also splashed away. If she had not been born in this family, Liang Feiyan would not believe that there would be such a father in the world. Although Liang Feiyan had poor academic performance since childhood, she was a student with expertise in sports and was admitted to the Kyoto Sports School. However, she was permanently disqualified from participating in sports events because of injuring someone in her first martial arts performance. When she returned home, facing her gambling father who was eager to exchange her for money, Liang Feiyan finally compromised. Coincidentally, she came across a pre-employment offer from the Dahao Group, so she put on some makeup and planned to make her debut. As a result, it immediately suffered a heavy blow from society. She lay on the side of the road and cried for a while. Who could she tell about the bitterness in her heart? She was very beautiful, and that was why she thought that being spotted by Xu Wenping today was her chance to hook up with a rich man. It turns out she was wrong. This bit of beauty may be worthless. Looking at the scattered banknotes in her bag, Liang Feiyan made a phone call. "Sister Han, can I go to your nightclub tonight?" "Master Long, your call came while I was just turning around." When Xu Wenping picked up the phone, it was Long Yi calling. He picked up the phone and responded. Long Yi laughed and said, "You young people are showing off. When are you going to use your precious four-wheeled vehicle to take an old man like me for a spin?" You can say that, right now. Just kidding, just kidding. I'm old, and I can't stand the speed and passion of you young people. I have something to tell you. Xinjiang Pharmaceutical is also yours, right? Xu Wenping raised his eyebrows slightly. Of course, Mr. Long would not ask about the fact that he stayed in a hotel, but when Xu Wenping heard Mr. Long mention Xinjiang Pharmaceutical, his heart sank slightly. I couldn't help but think about what Jiang Yuming said today. Chapter 83 Long Xiaoyun. Mr. Long's information is correct. Yes, Xinjiang Pharmaceutical was indeed acquired by me recently. Grandpa Long nodded and said with a smile, then the news is correct. There are a few small things. However, I would like my grandson to tell you about these things. I wonder if Grandpa Xu is interested in listening. These people often do not explain their actions in words, but they have already understood the idea spiritually. Obviously, what Mr. Long meant was that he might have some knowledge of the internal situation of Xinjiang Pharmaceutical, but he himself was old and not willing to get involved in the business world. On the one hand, he was giving a gift, and on the other hand, he wanted Xu Wenping to give some advice to his grandson so that they would get to know each other and avoid offending each other in the future. In fact, Xu Wenping was not worried about Xinjiang Pharmaceutical. However, he also wanted to make friends with these big merchants, so he nodded and agreed, that's a good thing. Then I'll arrange it. I am so embarrassed. Let's arrange it tonight at the Grand Hyatt International. As long as Mr. Xu doesn't blame me for being too old and tired and unable to come in person, I will be satisfied. The old man is joking. Xu Wenping said something polite, then hung up the phone with a thoughtful look on his face. In his words, Mr. Long hinted that he wanted to pass on his property to his grandson. Since he was giving gifts and asking for help, Xu Wenping would not refuse. However, what was stirring in his heart was more about what Jiang Yuming had mentioned in the morning. After a little consideration, he wanted to call Jiang Yuming several times, but finally got through to Su Yurou. Yurou? Xu Wenping asked cautiously, and Su Yurou on the other side said gently, what are you doing? So cautious. I'm not a fox, ghost or monster, tell me what you want to say. Have you heard of Xinjiang Pharmaceutical? Xinjiang Pharmaceutical? Of course I've heard of it. It's one of the 3 largest pharmaceutical companies in the provincial capital. We've even had some resources and cooperated with them before. Su Yurou seemed to have smelled the scent of business and asked, what do you mean? I'll have to trouble you to take care of the Su Group's merger for a few days. Let's swallow this group like a snake swallowing an elephant. Hiss. After the words fell, Su Yurou first took a breath of cold air, but then she said calmly, be prepared at any time, I'm just afraid that your elephant is too small and can't satisfy my appetite. Xu Wenping showed a look of surprise, but then he felt relieved. Having such a wife really made everyone happy. Then give me a kiss. Lure. Xu Wenping made up his mind and didn't delay any longer. However, when he was going to play, he raised his eyebrows and thought of Chen Pai. He called Chen Pai and they went to Haoxing International together. Mr. Long always dresses very fashionably, because he is a very fashionable person himself, a native of the local area, and works in the hotel and entertainment industries. Xu Wenping was so busy enjoying the beautiful scenery one day that he forgot that his good brother, Chen Pai, is the little king in loving women. Now that we're there, can't the young master of the Long family make some arrangements? Elder brother. Chen Pai still had long hair and looked sloppy, but he looked much more flamboyant than a few days ago. He had a big gold chain around his neck, a big gold Rolex on his hands, and his Hermes belt was inadvertently exposed. It seems that the big brothers in society preferred this kind of atmosphere. Chen Pai's transportation company is located near the suburbs, facing the sea on one side and backed by the mountains on the other. It looks well organized at this moment. The only difference from other freight companies is that there are always dozens of idle people in the rest area, playing cards, drinking and smoking there, not doing their jobs. Seeing Chen Pai coming over excitedly, Xu Wenping rolled his eyes and said, get in the car. You've scratched my chassis with your broken turf. Where are you going? Chen Pai's eyes lit up. I'll take you to have some fun. And I'll introduce you to some people. You often go to entertainment venues. If we bump into each other, I'll lose face as your brother. Chen Pai blushed and said, I'm not the one who stirs up trouble. If others don't provoke me, why should I provoke them? Having said that, there is always a sense of lack of confidence. It's no wonder that after practicing the boxing skills taught by Xu Wenping recently, Chenpi's strength has risen to a new level. The idea of killing people without being seen is always realized on some wooden stakes. Even bullying a person is not a big deal. Forget about the opponent. What's the point of fighting if you can't even withstand a single blow? Who do you know? You'll know when you get there. Because of this setback, when Xu Wenping arrived at the place, it was just getting dark. After he got through the phone, an excited young man's voice immediately came out and said, "Master Xu. You're here? Xiaolong will come down to pick you up. We are all the same age, why are you lowering your generation? Which box are you in? I've already come up." Xu Wenping and Chen Pai entered the store and started talking as they exited the elevator. Chen Pai also said, "Hoshing International, it is said that even if you have money, you can't get a seat. I came here 3 times and was turned away. Brother, you should have brought me here. Otherwise, I will smash this small store next time." Chen Pai's voice was not concealed. The leading lobby manager thought that an unwelcome guest had arrived, so he walked up with a dark face and stretched out his arm to block them. "You too, we are from Hoshing International. If you don't have an appointment." Master Xu. As he was talking, a little fat boy, only about 1.6 meters tall, with a cute yet somewhat cunning face, wearing a suit, with a big belly, rushed out with excitement on his face. He looked a bit careless, kicked the lobby manager and said, "Get lost, are you going to reserve your valve core? Turn your eyes over and see clearly." The little fat man immediately pulled Xu Wenping's arm and introduced him as if he was introducing a gift. "This is the most powerful man in our entire Jinhai city, Master Xu." "Got it. Hello, Mr. Xu." The lobby manager, who was still lying on the ground, quickly took the lead and called out to their welcoming waiters. If these businessmen were to make movies, they would all be best actors. After introducing Xu Wenping, he immediately introduced himself, "Brother Xu. My name is Long Xiaoyun, and I have to rely on you to protect me from now on." Long Xiaoyun? Is he the boss here? The eldest son of the Long family. Before Xu Wenping could say anything, Chenpi behind him raised his eyebrows and spoke, seeming a little annoyed. Hey, hello, young man. From your tone, do you have any complaints against me, Xiaolong?" Chen Pai rolled his eyes and said, "Nonsense. I came to your place 3 times but failed to get in. I was thinking about giving you a black knife someday. But since you are all with my big brother, let's just make peace rather than make enemies." Chen Pai stretched out his hand and said, "Delivery player, Chen Pai." Feeling the faint murderous aura from Chen Pai, Long Xiaoyun did not dare to despise him. After a moment of hesitation, he kicked the lobby manager again. He said, "You stupid bastard, get Brother Pai a membership card. I want the most prestigious one." Chapter 84 Uninvited Guests. Although what happened in the front hall was ridiculous, everyone still entered the box. The gentle lights were on, and after Long Xiaoyun sat down, he immediately took out an envelope. Long Xiaoyun's eyes flickered, and he said, "To be honest, Brother Xu, this is a list that the old man collected for me. They are all from Xinjiang Pharmaceutical. Do you want to give it to Brother Pai, or take it yourself?" Although Long Xiaoyun performed very well, he was after all almost the same age as Xu Wenping. Because of the old man's relationship, Long Xiaoyun had to be inferior to others, so he was naturally a little unhappy. Therefore, taking out the list was also a test of Xu Wenping's courage. Xu Wenping always had a smile on his face and a cigarette in his hand. He just casually took the envelope, tore it open, and took out a piece of paper inside. The above are several unfamiliar names, and how they embezzled and accepted bribes in Xinjiang Pharmaceutical, how they contacted foreign capital, and how they brought down their own group. It can be seen that this kind of embezzlement may have been common in Xinjiang Pharmaceutical. If an ordinary boss saw that his company was in a state of disarray from the inside out, he would probably become furious. Xu Wenping glanced at it but didn't even look at it carefully. He just picked up the lighter. "Xu, Brother Xu. This is the only one of its kind. There is no backup." Boom. Long Xiaoyun was unable to call out, as the list had already turned to ashes under the raging fire. Seeing Long Xiaoyun's pale face, Xu Wenping patted him on the shoulder and said, "What's a list of names? The main reason I came here today is to make friends with you, young Master Long." At first, Long Xiaoyun wanted to argue with Xu Wenping, but at this moment, he felt inexplicably palpitating for no reason. With that list, there might be a chance to clean up the internal situation and gradually turn the company around. Once the list is burned, there will be no chance of survival. Although Long Xiaoyun was also known as a prodigal rich second generation, and he usually played with cars worth tens of millions or hundreds of millions, and famous watches were not a problem. But could he just throw away such a company with a market value of tens of billions without any hesitation? Good job. Either that or Long Yunping has the list himself, but if so, why doesn't he deal with the group's affairs? There is only one possibility. Xu Wenping doesn't care at all. How rich does one have to be to not care about such a prestigious company in the provincial capital? Long Xiaoyun felt a sense of awe from the bottom of his heart, and immediately poured the wine. The frivolous look on his face disappeared, and he lowered his head and said, "Brother Xu. From now on, I, Long Xiaoyun, will be like our pai, your loyal little brother. If you ask me to do something, I will never do something else." Long Xiaoyun drank the wine in his glass in one gulp, put it down and said, "Although I, Long Xiaoyun, am a bit of a jerk, but we in the Long family are as good as our word. Okay, let's get rich together." Xu Wenping also raised his cup and said lightly, "Why are you still standing there? Be happy." Often in a social gathering, there are only a few words that are truly useful. In fact, for someone like Mr. Long, even if Xu Wenping had higher wealth and qualifications, he could only look at him as an equal. In comparison, young people like Long Xiaoyun could better consolidate Xu Wenping's power. The scene got to the point. Long Xiaoyun waved his hand and immediately, a group of beautiful women walked in. "Hello, boss. Oh my little darling, come on, hurry up and sit down, hurry up and sit down." Before Xu Wenping could say anything, Chen Pi stood up impatiently. His lewd expression was so lewd that Xu Wenping couldn't bear to look at it. However, Xu Wenping's vision has now become higher. He raised his head and took a glance, and his mood can be said to be condescending. Just when he had given up hope, one of the tallest women made Xu Wenping's eyes light up slightly. It was obvious that she was unhappy and seemed a little angry, which made Xu Wenping suspicious. Just when he was about to wave his hand to call her over, the woman went out dejectedly. Although Xu Wenping felt strange, with his mentality, he would not go out of his way to greet any hostess. Seeing a young woman sitting down and pouring wine and lighting a cigarette for him, Xu Wenping accepted it in a romantic but not vulgar manner. Soft music was playing. Chen Pai didn't want to sing anyway, so Xu Wenping and Long Xiaoyun chatted idly, talking about their interests and hobbies, and the interesting stories of the Jin Hai family. After a while, there was a sudden sound of rustling and breaking outside. As soon as the sound stopped, the lobby manager came over and whispered in Long Xiaoyun's ear. Long Xiaoyun frowned and said to Xu Wenping with a wry smile, "Brother Xu, something happened, I'll go out and solve it." Good. It was natural that trouble would easily arise in such a place, but at this moment, Chen Pai stood up and immediately asked, "What's the matter? What happened?" "Brother. I'll go out and help Xiaoyun." "Damn it, someone dares to cause trouble in our brother's place." Xu Wenping also raised his eyebrows slightly. Instead of refusing, he followed Chen Pai's words and said, "A Pai is right. How about we help you together?" Long Xiaoyun looked surprised, but after a moment of thought, he said, "Okay, let's take a look together." As he was speaking, Chen Pi had already gone out. The two of them caught up and saw a tall girl being pressed on the sofa in the corridor. Another man was covered with scratches and had been torn apart badly. There were also two palm prints on his face. "Fuck you. You crazy bitch, you really piqued my interest. If I don't poke you today, I'm not Kong Lao-san." The house was smashed, and although the woman looked tall, she was facing a man who was much bigger than her. At this moment, not only was she pressed on the sofa and unable to move, she also had to watch Kong Lao-san unbuttoning his pants. Obviously, he was drunk too. "That woman is?" Xu Wenping asked calmly, and Long Xiaoyun said with a dark face, "The new little sister in our place." "Forget it, why don't we just not watch it? That guy is the third child of Chairman Kong's family. Just give this girl some more money later. Kong Lao-san is a heavy drinker and won't remember anything when he wakes up the next day, so it's not worth offending him. If it's none of your business, just ignore it." Xu Wenping nodded and was about to walk in. Suddenly, the woman turned her head and shouted, "Chairman, save me. Please. I beg you, please save me." When Xu Wenping heard the voice, he was stunned for a moment. Then he looked at the woman's exposed skin and had a strange idea in his mind. "API, help her. Brother Xu." Long Xiaoyun was surprised and said, "That's the Kong family." Boom. The third son of the Kong family was bigger than Chenpi, but Chenpi picked him up and punched him in the chest, sending him flying 5 meters away. When he fell to the ground, he was already unconscious with blood in his mouth. Old, third brother. Chapter 85 Hot Woman. Long Xiaoyun was stunned on the spot. No one nearby dared to speak. Xu Wenping rolled his eyes at Chen Pai and said, "Can't you stop it? If you kill me, I'll save you. Isn't it more comfortable to sit in the cell?" Under Long Xiaoyun's shocked gaze, Xu Wenping slowly stepped forward, waved his hand and a small wooden box popped out, and in front of everyone, he actually began to treat Kong Lao-san. Chenpi's punch just now was too heavy, and Kong Lao-san was drunk, so his heart activity was already poor. Death is just a matter of a moment, no kidding. But just after Xu Wenping gave him a few injections, Kong Lao-san actually resumed breathing and spat out a mouthful of blood. Although he was still unconscious, it was no longer a matter of life or death. Take him to the hospital for emergency treatment. After Xu Wenping calmly arranged everything, Long Xiaoyun nodded immediately and ordered his men to carry Kong Lao-san to the hospital. Needless to say, Long Lao-san felt a little scalp tingling when he saw this scene. If he admired and respected Xu Wenping 5 minutes ago, at this moment, he was even more afraid of him. Good job. In my entire life, I have never seen anyone save someone after beating them up. Are you planning to beat them up again? Xu Wenping nodded to Long Xiaoyun and the laughing Chen Pai, and was about to go back into the box. Looking at the woman with messy hair, Xu Wenping said calmly, "Your face is not suitable for makeup. Go remove your makeup, fix your hair, and come in to find me." The woman bit her lip and her body trembled, but when she looked at Xu Wenping, she looked aggrieved and said with tears in her eyes, "Why are you so arrogant? If you hadn't cheated me of all my money, would I have come here to work as a hostess?" Forehead. Xu Wenping was stunned. At this moment, his identity had been revealed, but he was also a little surprised. Her makeup at this moment is much better than that in the morning. At least it can show Liang Feiyan's beauty that is a combination of fortitude and refinement. When Liang Feiyan said this, everyone was shocked. Long Xiaoyun immediately said, "What are you talking about? Can Brother Xu cheat you of such a small amount of money? Misunderstanding, go inside and talk. Go comb your hair first, don't go crazy." Xu Wenping gave Liang Feiyan a faint look. Liang Feiyan was originally very angry, but when she saw this look, she remembered the scene where she was deceived, and she suddenly panicked. "Forget it, a small person like me can never beat them. Yes. I'll go wash my face." Liang Feiyan lowered her head and walked away. The three of them entered the room again. Seeing that Xu Wenping didn't mention it, Chen Pai and Long Xiaoyun certainly didn't ask. However, the latter asked with some concern, "Brother Xu, will there be any problem with doing this to Kong Lao-san? That President Kong is quite protective of his son." Fart. Without Xu Wenping's reply, a glimmer of wisdom suddenly flashed in Chen Pai's violent eyes, and he said, "Brother Xu, give him face and call him the president. If you don't give him face, send him to see the king of hell." Long Xiaoyun couldn't help but lower his head. "Good job. I thought I was the craziest person in Jinhai, but I didn't expect you to be even crazier than me. There is no way." Unlike Xu Wenping, Chen Pai's desperado rage and courage to go barefoot without fear of wearing shoes are really frightening to living people. This guy's actions are really annoying. Seeing Long Xiaoyun's fear, Xu Wenping's mood became even happier. He smiled and said, "It's okay, Xiaolong. We are brothers. Our Pai won't let you go to see the king of hell, right? That's not possible. I'm relying on my brother Long to eat, drink and have fun." Har har har. Chen Pai hooked his arm around Long Xiaoyun's shoulder. Just at this moment, the door was pushed open with a bang, and then closed with a bang. Liang Feiyan walked to the front with a cold face, bowed to Xu Wenping and said, "Hello, boss." Liang Feiyan not only washed her face and combed her hair, she also changed her clothes. Her skirt was so short that it could only cover the base of her thighs. Her long wheat-colored legs were as well proportioned as two beams, smooth without a trace of fat. Her pair of beautifully shaped feet, wearing a pair of golden sandals, brought out her sexiness to the extreme. In just a few minutes, it seemed that there was a senior makeup artist guiding her from behind. There was no makeup on her face, only light eyeliner. She raised her head with a look of grievance and coldness, and her standing posture was very straight, which immediately made the three men present have the word, too, flashing in their minds. Stunning. There is too much courage and heroism on a woman's face, which does not match a gentle appearance. However, because of this, plus the color of her pupils, she can instantly arouse a man's desire to conquer her. This is definitely the root of pure dominance. How should I put it? Even Xu Wenping felt a little excited. Originally Liang Feiyan had deliberately pretended to be coquettish and vulgar, but now she let it go and instead displayed the heroic spirit of a sports student and a warrior. Seeing that no one was talking, she simply showed her full aura and walked up in high heels, not even looking at Chen Pai and Long Xiaoyun. Her peach buttocks fell on Xu Wenping's legs. Liang Feiyan was taller than Xu Wenping to begin with, and now that she was sitting on top, her gaze was even more condescending. She raised a glass of wine with a provocative tone, and said, "Boss, do you want me to feed you some wine? Do you like me like this? Boss, can I sell it to you at a high price? I really want money." After saying 3 sentences in a row, Liang Feiyan drank the strong whiskey in the glass in one gulp. After holding it in her mouth, she did not swallow it directly. Instead, she endured the strong stinging pain and moved her lips towards him. Interesting. Xu Wenping raised his eyebrows slightly. There was a flash of interest and surprise in Long Xiaoyun and Chen Pai's eyes. The former came over and hooked Chen Pai's shoulders, saying, "Should we make room for Brother Xu?" "Damn. You're still smart." Long Xiaoyun waved his hand, and the other girls stood up one after another. After they left, Long Xiaoyun also pulled Chen Pai to the next box to play. On the sofa, Liang Feiyan and Xu Wenping kissed passionately. Liang Feiyan suddenly started to shed tears. Xu Wenping looked calm and said calmly, "If you don't want to, don't force yourself." "I, Xu Wenping, won't force you. If you were as good as you said, you should have fucked me hard this afternoon instead of leaving me and going away by yourself." Liang Feiyan wiped her tears while lifting her legs onto the table. She put her hands behind the table and spread her legs in an M shape. Her empty and tender area was exposed to their view. There was not even a trace of hair blocking their view, and a delicate and undeveloped thin film could be seen. "How old are you?" 19. "No wonder, it just trickles out without even touching it." Xu Wenping stroked his chin and smiled bitterly. "Did I misunderstand you? Why don't you come down and discuss it with me? You're only 19 and a virgin. It's a pity to sell it for money." Chapter 86, Stepfather, Husband, Godfather, Linen Belt, Please. "If I'm ever going to be done something like this by someone in my life, I hope it's you." Liang Feiyan held back tears, but her eyes were firm, and she gritted her teeth and said, "Because I hate you. Today is the most memorable day in my life. I'm telling you the truth. It wasn't anyone outside who arranged for me to do anything. I did it on purpose. Do you think you were really messing with me? We don't know who was messing with whom. You are a weak-kneed guy, a useless guy, you are waste. Come on if you have the ability. You don't even have this little ability, do you? Damn it. Who can withstand such excitement?" This was the second time Xu Wenping was scolded by this woman. He was furious. He gritted his teeth and mounted his horse, picking up his gun and going into battle. A drop of blood dripped onto the tiles. In fact, Xu Wenping's formula was already quite strong. After his experience with Su Yurou, he realized that the system reward he received was too strong and needed to be restrained. 5 minutes passed. Although Liang Feiyan's face was red and she felt very uncomfortable, she bit her red lips and said nothing. There is no doubt that Xu Wenping was even more stimulated now, and he immediately accelerated his offensive. In the next 20 minutes, Liang Feiyan was attacked like this and naturally couldn't bear it at all. She raised her hands from the table and slammed Xu Wenping's back, and began to emit low groans from her mouth. In order to stop herself from making any sound, Liang Feiyan bit Xu Wenping's shoulder directly, and the nails of both hands wanted to pierce into his back. "Mum? I hate you, I hate you. Why? Why don't you love me? Why do you make me so comfortable? What's your name?" Although Xu Wenping had not yet opened fire at full strength, he had already opened fire at 99%. It must be said that Liang Feiyan had excellent physical strength. At this moment, she finally let out a high-pitched cry, but was still able to take a breath, and asked this question under such a soul-stirring entanglement. "My name is Xu Wenping. Remember this name." Xu Wenping finished his words in a deep voice, and then he finally opened fire with full force, and then, sharp shouts swept across. Even Liang Feiyan, under this attack, finally had a head spasm. Wow wow, Xu Wenping, I was wrong. Godfather, husband, godfather, please don't give me the linen belt, please spare me. Please, woo 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 woo, I was wrong. As Liang Feiyan cried and convulsed until she could no longer scream, Xu Wenping withdrew his attack. Liang Feiyan was gently placed on the sofa. She curled up and lay down, still murmuring and begging for mercy. Xu Wenping put on his clothes, asked Long Xiaoyun for a blanket, wrapped Liang Feiyan in it, and then carried her upstairs to the room. Liang Feiyan was already unconscious, and Xu Wenping leaned close to look at his face. It feels interesting and strange. There were 2 beds in the room. After Xu Wenping took a shower, he fell into a deep sleep. No words were spoken that night. The next morning, Xu Wenping opened his eyes according to the rhythm of his biological clock, but when he looked towards the bed next to him, he was surprised to find that there was no one on the bed. Xu Wenping scratched his head, feeling somewhat puzzled, and then he saw the note on the bedside table. Xu Wenping. Although I really want the money. But I may not have the face to ask for your money. You are like a pile driver, you don't know how to be gentle with women. I am just being tough, but you are really tough. Forget it. I'm just an ordinary woman. It's a great honor for me to sleep with a big shot like you. See you in the rivers and lakes. I'm sorry for our first meeting. Seeing this interesting message, Xu Wenping couldn't help but smile and said to himself, wow, it really was me who was slept with by someone else. Xu Wenping did not have any psychological changes. He did not realize that the girl was so young and even a little naive, so it was understandable that she would have such extreme considerations. As for her foul language and bad temper, she can only blame it on her family upbringing. Xu Wenping didn't even ask. After he went downstairs, Long Xiaoyun called to inform him of Liang Feiyan's whereabouts. Last night, the company paid Liang Feiyan 3,000 yuan as a guest companion. At this moment, she was lying in a nearby small hotel and sleeping soundly. Xu Wenping sent Shenpi back and wanted to call Su Yurou on the way, but after thinking it over, he called Jiang Yuming first. Because Su Yurou made 5 missed calls last night. Chairman. Yuming. Call Du Wan and ask him to find a scout to go to the location I gave you and find a girl named Liang Feiyan. Don't say it was me who said that. If you can train her to be an artist, then do your best to train her. If you can't train her, then give her full benefits and assign her a sinecure, and she can do whatever she wants. Yes, Chairman. Jiang Yuming agreed immediately. Although it was a matter that could not be any smaller, since it was Xu Wenping who asked for it, Jiang Yuming would of course handle it properly. He also realized that the relationship between this girl and the chairman was not that simple and he had to make proper arrangements. But before Xu Wenping hung up the phone, Jiang Yuming said, Chairman, you just called me. I have something else to report to you. Well, go ahead. Jiang Yuming said softly, today, the pharmaceutical factory under President Kong made another adjustment, and the price of the drugs shipped out of the factory has been reduced by another 5 points. If there is no accident, there should be an accident. He should have withdrawn in an orderly manner. Chairman, the matter of the pharmaceutical sector has nothing to do with our Dahao group, but I always feel that something is wrong. This President Kong is vaguely targeting you. Puff. Xu Wenping chuckled and said, you have a really good business sense. Okay, I won't hide it from you anymore. Let's deal with the things on hand and go to Jinjiang Pharmaceutical in the provincial capital to serve as the general manager for a few days. Oh, the provincial capital. What? Jinjiang Pharmaceutical. Jiang Yuming just responded in a low voice, and then he said in shock, is it Jinjiang Pharmaceutical, one of the 3 largest pharmaceutical companies in the provincial capital? Is it also yours? Chairman, I understand now that you put it that way. After a moment of excitement, Jiang Yuming said in a serious tone, although I haven't studied it, I have heard that Jinjiang Pharmaceutical is a centipede that will not die. The Kong Group has long been interested in acquiring it. But, Chairman, although I claim to have some ability, facing a long-corrupted behemoth like the Jinjiang Group, I am afraid that I will not be able to make constructive changes in the short term. I'm afraid it's too big a task. It was really difficult to squeeze these words out of Jiang Yuming's mouth, but at this moment, Jiang Yuming had to admit this fact. There was nothing he could do about a company he had no idea about and that was extremely corrupt. Chapter 87 Plan Prototype. Xu Wenping did not give his opinion directly. After thinking for a while, he said, Yuming, what do you think will happen if the Kong Group's factory withdraws from Jinhai? Jiang Yuming paused slightly. After careful consideration, he said, in fact, pharmaceutical factories are usually located in remote areas. It is difficult for them to be taken over by other companies of the same type. As far as I know, the land approved for the Kong Group's pharmaceutical factory has expired. The Kong Group will not renew the contract. That would leave a mess for the government. Chairman Kong is targeting you because he wants to alienate you from Li Shizuan. After all, in the short term, those small medical companies simply cannot accept such a large project. Xu Wenping raised his eyebrows, his expression brightened, and said, if so, then we can't throw away this precious land. What are you talking about? Hearing Jiang Yueming's surprised look, Xu Wenping stopped explaining, as it was too difficult to explain. He said softly, don't worry about it. This time when you go to Jinjiang Pharmaceutical, you just need to make a show of force and focus on one thing, recovering the foreign debt. Bring out the bills for your debts, and I'll let Shenpi help you get as much back as you can. This should be enough to raise the funds to take over the factory of the Kong Group. Then we need to negotiate with the Kong Group. They can buy the company as long as the price is not too outrageous. However, the transaction must be completed after they have all withdrawn from Jinhai. Jiang Yuming was confused after hearing this. After thinking about it, he nodded and said, okay, Chairman. I seem to understand a little, but I still don't understand the essence. But when it comes to the price, I will definitely not let the Kong Group take advantage of me. That's good. Chairman, there is one more thing. I want to take Yu Youling with me when I go to the provincial capital this time. The time is 2 days later. What do you think? Jiang Yuming said softly. Xu Wenping looked surprised and asked, take her. Jiang Yuming smiled softly and said, in fact, after the chairman paid attention to her, I also paid attention to her. Yu Youling has various certificates and a master's degree in business administration. She is actually very capable, but she has not been well polished. In the business department, it is indeed a bit of a waste of talent. I'm not trying to flatter the chairman this time. She is even more skilled than my most experienced assistant in handling some matters. If she is trained well, she will have a bright future. Although Xu Wenping was surprised, he was also happy in his heart. He said, okay. As expected, opportunities are reserved for those who are prepared. How about this, you give her 2 days off, and I will talk to her about this matter. After the last time they had sex, Yu Youling felt a little depressed, so this was a good opportunity to sort out their awkward relationship. Also because of Su Yurou's golden order, Xu Wenping thought, let's get in touch, it should be okay, right? Yes, Chairman. Xu Wenping hung up the phone, thought for a moment, and then called Su Yurou. Yurou, I was busy with a social event at the pharmaceutical company last night and drank too much, so you didn't go home, right? Su Yurou said gently, it's okay. I called to tell you that I didn't go home last night and asked you to go back by yourself. Oh. Well, I'm coming to the provincial capital. I have some things to deal with, and it will probably take 2 or 3 days. If you have any progress, just call me anytime. Okay. Hearing Xu Wenping nod, Su Yurou said gently, I understand that you are under so much pressure outside. Remember to take care of yourself when I'm not around. Yer, muwa. Wow. Xu Wenping hung up the phone with a smile on his face. At this time, on the other side, inside a hotel in the provincial capital, 2 beauties were sitting. Su Yurou was wearing a loose nightgown, lying on the sofa with her legs crossed, holding a cup of milk tea in her hand. Beside her, a girl who was no less beautiful than her, but more youthful and beautiful, with heroic eyebrows, was resting her head on her shoulders. Hearing the sticky muwa, the girl immediately exclaimed, huh, shivered as if she had goosebumps all over her body, and said, my mom-in-love is so greasy. If you can't speak, just say less. Su Yurou rolled her eyes. The little girl immediately stuck out her tongue and said, I was wrong, is that not okay? Su Yurou tapped the little girl's nose and said, I really can't do anything about you. This woman is Su Yurou's daughter, Su Tsaiwei. Because Su Tsaiwei came to the provincial capital to participate in a school event and her parents were required to show up, Su Yurou had to come to the provincial capital. The 2 of them were enjoying their leisure time. Su Yurou frowned slightly and said, by the way, Tsaiwei. Your mother and I have solved our emotional problems very well now. How about you? What happened between you and your ex-boyfriend? Hearing this, Su lowered her brows slightly and couldn't help but let out a humph from her nose. Why, did that guy bully you? Su Yurou raised her eyebrows slightly and said, whoever bullies our Su family's daughter, Mom will make him pay the price. Su pouted dejectedly, then curled up her legs and hugged them, saying, no. That person is like a wooden stake, how could he bully me? He's only in his early 20s, but he looks mature. When people act cute and hint at him, he doesn't understand at all. In fact, I really like him. Breaking up with him was just an angry statement, and he didn't understand. He didn't even bother to contact me later. Seeing Su Wei's dejected look, Su Yurou couldn't help but chuckle and said, girl, you really know how to stir up trouble. Do you like to torment others like that? I guess you deleted her contact information again? Blocked her? How can I contact you back? We are classmates. He can find out by just asking around. Su Wei said angrily. Su Yurou shook her head helplessly and smiled bitterly. Do you think he is sincere to you? If a man doesn't love you, he won't be able to feel your little emotions. Su Wei frowned and shook her head. That's not the case at all. He's just stupid, dull, and doesn't understand. He's usually very nice to me. No matter what he does, he's always open and aboveboard. Let me tell you, Mom. How stupid is he? Even one day, when we went out to get a room, Su Wei was about to give a vivid interpretation, but when she met Su Yurou's eyes, her face suddenly turned red and she said, Mom, is not what you imagined, oh. Chapter 88 Invitation. Forget it. I confess. Seeing Su Yurou's insightful eyes, Su Wei shrugged helplessly and said, he asked me out that night, we had dinner and watched a movie together. In fact, I knew the dormitory was closed, so I didn't plan to go back. But nothing happened to us. Mom, believe me. There was a clerk that day who kept hinting that I was being cheated. I got so angry that I booked a room and went upstairs. I didn't even close the door, but who would have thought that he didn't even come in? Instead, he found a room next to mine and slept there. Oh my God. I was so angry when I woke up that day. No matter how dumb he is, he can't be so stupid. You knocked on the door to bring me a glass of water, and you knew my door was open. Su Yurou was immediately amused and laughed, and said sarcastically, oh, my Wei, this beauty trap failed, so you got angry. Su Wei's face turned pale and blue, and she grabbed Su Yurou's arm and shook it, saying, Mom, stop laughing at me. Then he said mischievously, Mom. I plan to go back during the holidays and give him another chance. Humph, if he's still. What's wrong with you? Su Wei stuck out her tongue and said, then I'll be more proactive and tell him straight out. I want to see if this idiot understands it or not. Su Yurou nodded with relief, holding her daughter's hand, and said, that's how it should be. You have to fight for your own love. A delicate daughter's attitude is not suitable for appearing in our Su family. Since Su Yurou was not at home anyway, Xu Wenping thought about it and drove directly to the village in the city. Although the urban village is quite good, Xu Wenping had to deal with it for a long time just to find a parking spot. It was only after he came downstairs that Xu Wenping called Yu Youling. Please don't call me anymore, are you annoying? Yu Youling said in a pretentious manner. Xu Wenping smiled softly and said, what's wrong? It's okay. I can't even call you. Aren't you afraid that my wife will come to your house? Bar. You liar, I don't believe you at all. I will never go to any Su group. You just know how to scare me. Humph, I don't want to pay attention to you. Although she said that, Yu Youling had no intention of hanging up the phone. Xu Wenping smiled gently and said, then I'll apologize to you. I'm downstairs in your house now. If you don't see me, I'll yell at you. After hearing Yu Youling's words, Xu Wenping felt relieved. If the two of them really met, who knows what would happen? Yu Youling on the other side did not respond, thinking that Xu Wenping was lying to him again. Xu Wenping did not mind and immediately shouted loudly, Yu Youling, I'm here to see you. The sound insulation in the urban village is of course not good. As soon as she shouted, Yu Youling on the third floor opened the window and looked down. Many people walking nearby were watching, and Yu Youling's face turned red. Chairman. You are a man of some dignity. How can you do this? Yu Youling. Oh, stop shouting, I'm coming down. Humph. Yu Youling snorted heavily. Although he was about to get off, Xu Wenping still squatted on the roadside and smoked 3 cigarettes. After all, the beauty upstairs had to dress up. When she got off, she would have her hair loose, wear a small floral skirt, and a pair of white flat sandals. Xu Wenping's eyes lit up when she suddenly transformed from a career girl to a girl next door. Although career girls are more sexy and beautiful, it seems that the style of the girl next door is more suitable for Yuling's temperament. Oh. Su Yurou has such a delicate temperament. Let me see where this fairy is from. You're just being ridiculous. Yu Youling bit her lip and said, I'll dress like this from now on, not showing my waist or chest, just wrapping it up, leaving no room for your imagination at all. Oh, why does it sound more exciting? Seeing Xu Wenping's leader put his arm around his waist, Yu Youling quickly gave him her hand and said, Oh, stop it. There are so many people on the street. Tell me quickly, what do you want from me? Nothing, I'll be back soon. Is it possible for me to go out with you? I came here specifically to date you. How about I go for a walk with you? Seeing Xu Wenping's talkative look and the struggle between the two villains of justice and evil in Yuling's mind, but holding hands and listening to the date, she really wanted to go. Let us go. With Xu Wenping holding her hand, Yu Youling followed reluctantly. Although the development of the urban village is not as good as that of the downtown, there are more things to do and the atmosphere of human touch. The two strolled along the long street and sat down in the small park. It seemed that no one was willing to break this warm atmosphere. After sitting for a while, Xu Wenping asked softly, How is Auntie's condition? Is she getting better now? When asked about her mother, Yu Youling couldn't help but smile knowingly and nodded. She has been discharged from the hospital now. She has no problem moving around normally and seems to be healthy now. But I still urge her to finish taking the medicine you prescribed. Well, that's good. If there is any disease, please inform me, the attending physician, immediately. Hearing this, Yu Youling also understood that Xu Wenping was looking for a topic. After pouting and humming, she simply leaned on Xu Wenping's shoulder and said, I know. I, Yu Youling, will never be able to escape from the palm of your hand, Chairman Xu. Humph. Xu Wenping chuckled and said, There's one more thing. After the holidays, Yu Ming is going to Jinhai on a business trip. He suggested taking you with him for training. Are you willing to go? He praised you so much in my ear. You have all kinds of certificates and you are a master's degree in economics. He wants to train you to be his successor. Yu Yuling's eyes lit up, and then her face turned slightly red. Since the last incident, President Jiang did transfer me to be his assistant. Maybe I can't adapt to their work in the marketing department. But if there is such an opportunity, I would still be willing to learn from Mr. Jiang. As she spoke, Yu Youling glanced at Xu Wenping and said, You didn't arrange this, did you? I'm fine with being controlled by you. I don't want to be a vase again. If you want to do something, give me something practical to do. Don't worry. Come on, I saw the barbecue over there, it smells so good. Let's go over and have a bite. It was almost time for dinner, so Xu Wenping also got up with Yu Youling. Yu Youling was slightly surprised and asked, You, a big chairman, also eat at a fly restaurant? Nonsense. Is my chairman not a human being? Yu Youling smiled gently and immediately patted her chest and said, Then I'll treat you this time. To be honest, their barbecue is really delicious. Chapter 89 Street Fun. The two of them walked hand in hand to the barbecue stall. After they sat down, Yu Youling introduced what was delicious and ordered a few things. The boss took the menu and said with a strange smile, Su Yurou, did you bring your boyfriend back? Introduce him to your aunt. Hearing this, Yu Yuling's face instantly turned red, and she said softly, No more, Auntie, this is my colleague. Auntie covered her mouth and smiled, saying, Okay, I got it. Then I'll go grill skewers for you and your colleagues. Yu Youling glared at Xu Wenping and said, Humph. Look, people have misunderstood. It's just a misunderstanding. Xu Wenping smiled lightly and said, I have done everything I should do. Are you still afraid of what others will say? Oh, that's disgusting. As time entered the afternoon, more and more people came to the barbecue stall. Xu Wenping and Yu Youling were not in a hurry. They drank some wine and did not care about the passage of time. Yu Yuling's alcohol tolerance is not very good, but today she seemed to want to drink to her heart's content and kept passing the glass to Xu Wenping. A young man wearing a big gold chain came to the big table next to the two men. He slapped the Mercedes-Benz logo on the table and shouted, boss, 10 skewers of pork loin and 2 pints of beer. Here I come. The young man was not very old, but he was quite fat. Although they were quite far away, Yu Youling still felt a little uncomfortable on her face, and she even dodged to the side. Not long after the young man arrived, a bunch of his friends also came, calling him Mr. Zhang and starting chatting. Because the volume of their conversation was turned up very high, Xu Wenping and Yu Youling could hear roughly what was going on amid the noise of flattery as long as they didn't cover their ears. Basically, Mr. Zhang is very powerful now. Mr. Zhang made money by shipping. Hundreds of thousands are just a sprinkle of water, a drizzle. This kind of drinking and bragging is not uncommon on the street stalls, so Xu Wenping naturally didn't care. However, Yu Youling seemed to be getting more and more uncomfortable, and her face was red from drinking, so she said, "Why don't we go? Auntie, check out." Yu Youling agreed that it was her treat today, and Xu Wenping did not get involved. After all, in the girl's heart, she always felt that she owed him something, and such a small interaction could always make Yu Youling feel relieved and not too stressed. Here I come. Yu Youling was about to scan the code to pay, but at this moment, Mr. Zhang at the table next to her suddenly stood up and said, "Wait." Yu Youling and Xu Wenping both looked up in surprise, only to see that Mr. Zhang looked at Xu Wenping sarcastically and said, "What's wrong with you, young man? You brought a girl out and asked her to pay? If you don't have that much financial strength, how can you date a girl?" Xu Wenping was slightly stunned, but he was not angry. What Mr. Zhang said was nonsense, but Xu Wenping felt that it made sense, so he took out his cell phone immediately. "Thanks for the reminder, brother." With Xu Wenping's character, he naturally wouldn't want to cause trouble with such a street thug, so he responded gently. But at this moment, Yu Youling suddenly yelled, "Zhang Gaoji! What do you want to do here? Wenping! Ignore him." Xu Wenping looked surprised. No wonder the man stood up and spoke. It turned out that they knew each other. Yu Youling wanted to continue paying the bill, but Mr. Zhang came over with a smile and blocked the aunt, saying, "Xiaoyu, I'm saying this for your own good. Look at this pretty boy, he looks so greasy, can he really be good to you? He must be here to cheat you out of your money. We are old classmates, Xiaoyu. With my many years of business experience, how can I not judge people? Kid, you'd better give me and Xiaoyu an explanation today, otherwise you can't leave this barbecue stall." Mr. Zhang really wanted to take control of the situation. He put one hand on Xu Wenping's face and said, "Is that right? Am I right? Did you cheat my Xiaoyu out of money and sex?" When Yu Youling heard what Mr. Zhang said, she was so angry that she turned around and pushed Mr. Zhang, saying, "Zhang Gaoji, are you annoying? Why do you care whether someone cheats me of my money or my body? What does it have to do with you? Could you please stop being so sticky? Where am I? Where are you? That won't work. Xiaoyu. Even if you don't like me, I, Zhang Gaoji, must be responsible for your lifelong happiness. I must be the one to screen your boyfriend." Zhang Gaoji was furious. He sat directly opposite Xu Wenping, looked at Xu Wenping sternly, and said, "Little pretty boy, did you hear what I just said?" Xu Wenping nodded like a chick pecking at rice, and said with a chuckle, "I heard what Mr. Zhang said. You plan to check for Xiaoyu, afraid that I am trying to cheat her for money and sex, right? Oh. Wenping. Why did you get into a fight with this idiot? Forget it. Let's go. I'll give auntie the money another day." Xu Wenping curled the corners of his mouth, but Yu Youling was not pulled up. Instead, Xu Wenping pulled her down and even put his arms around her waist. Yu Yuling's face suddenly turned red. She struggled a few times without success and then let Xu Wenping hold her. Zhang Gaoji over there was so angry that his hair was almost standing on end, and he did not hide his jealousy at all. In terms of who is more handsome, I think you're already inferior. Does that mean that as long as I'm richer than you, Xiaoyu will belong to me, and you'll stop pestering Xiaoyu? Xu Wenping's voice was calm and indifferent. Mr. Zhang's face turned pale and blue. Although he loved to brag, he was also more pragmatic and said, "That's right. I don't care about the little white face. From a coarse willow winnowing basket to a fine willow bucket, who in the world thinks a man is ugly? A man must have ability. Only then can we give Xiaoyu the happiness she wants." Xu Wenping immediately gave a thumbs up and said, "You are a real man. So, tell me, how can we compete in terms of money? Should we buy Xiaoyu a bag or cosmetics, or sunbathe on her forehead?" Mr. Zhang waved his hand and said, I have an opinion on this. It doesn't matter how much money a man has. What matters is how much money he can spend on the person he loves. That's too vulgar. Today is Xu Yu's birthday. I plan to prepare a fireworks display for Xu Yu. I want fireworks to cover the entire sky of the urban village. Do you dare to compete? Birthday. Xu Wenping was stunned for a moment, then looked down at Yu Youling. Yu Youling's eyes were a little evasive, and Xu Wenping said gently, Why didn't you tell me such an important thing? Yu Youling was tangled up and said, There is no relationship between us, why should I tell you? Seeing Yu Youling so sweetly lying in Xu Wenping's arms, Mr. Zhang was almost furious. Chapter 90, City Celebration. Xu Wenping leaned close to Yu Youling's ear and whispered, Don't ever say that again. You did that to me that night, so you must be responsible for me for the rest of your life. Otherwise, you'll be a heartless woman. Oh my god. Show me some fireworks. It seemed that Zhang Gaoji had already made preparations. He took out his mobile phone and sent a message. The next moment, a bunch of fireworks suddenly bloomed in the distance of the village in the city. At this time, many people were paying attention to the dispute here. Upon hearing this, they looked up at the sky. After a firework, there was no movement. That's it. Zhang Gaoji still looked very proud of himself. Immediately afterwards, fireworks lit up in another corner of the urban village. It turned out that the fireworks ceremony he prepared was from slow to fast. After the second beam flashed, the third beam quickly rose, followed by the fifth beam, the sixth beam. After 10 bunches of fireworks were set off, countless fireworks lit up from all directions from far to near. Some were like dancing silver snakes, some were like blooming peonies, some danced in the sky, and some spread out their branches in the air. In a flash, the fireworks in the sky were like an umbrella, illuminating the entire village in the city, and it seemed that they could not stop and continued forever. This attracted all the tourists to stop and watch. The urban village was wrapped up into a dreamlike scene, but unfortunately, Zhang Gaoji's preparation was just a futile effort to help Xu Wenping. Yu Youling clung tightly to Xu Wenping. Until I heard a voice in my ear. Xiao Yun, I have a favor to ask of you. Master Budo, I'm Xiao Shu. I have something I want to trouble you with today. President Tu, can you help me out when you have time? Listening to Xu Wenping's gentle voice, Yu Youling stared at Xu Wenping, a hint of happiness flashing in her eyes, and shook his arm and said, Forget it, Wenping. I'm not that kind of woman. There's no need. The fireworks continued to bloom for more than half an hour, until the last one bloomed into the words, Happy Birthday. Mr. Zhang, who was standing opposite, looked at Yu Youling affectionately and anxiously. As the last bunch of flowers fell, anger appeared on Mr. Zhang's face. At this time, whispering sounds were heard from the side. How romantic. I wonder who did this. I think every girl dreams of having such a beautiful fireworks rain of her own. Husband. Shut up, you better shut up. This alone would cost several million. I, your husband, can't afford it even if I earn it in my lifetime. It's all because you're useless. Humph. How can I be that person? After hearing the voice beside him, Mr. Zhang showed a smug look. He turned to look at Xu Wenping and said coldly, Boy. You have seen my strength, right? If you are man, you should fulfill the agreement between us. If you can't do better than me, then leave Xu Yu on your own initiative. Let Xu Yu stay with me. Xu Wenping was smiling, but suddenly he became a little cold. He held Yu Yuling's hand, stood up gently, looked at Zhang Gaoji opposite him, and said slowly, Mr. Zhang, I understand your admiration for Xu Yu. But courtship is not about being in heat. It's not about doing something insignificant like a peacock spreading its feathers, and it's certainly not about falsely moving yourself. I always believe that the true love between two people comes from their heart and cannot be controlled. If love is complete control of oneself, he would not be so charming. Zhang Gaoji was stunned by these words, and for a moment he couldn't think straight. On the other hand, Yu Youling next to him was so moved that she unconsciously held Xu Wenping's hand tightly. What marriage and family? Isn't he love the most important thing in this world? Am I, Yu Youling, not worthy of pursuing my own love? Zhang Gaoji was stunned for a moment, then pointed at Xu Wenping angrily and said, Don't tell me these nonsense. Don't you want to abide by the gentleman's agreement between us? Xu Wenping smiled gently. Then he glanced sideways and said, Look over there. On the bank curtain across the street, the flowing red words suddenly turned into a string, I wish Xiaoyu peace, happiness and all the best. Zhang Gaoji was slightly startled and asked, that's it? However, at this moment, someone suddenly shouted, oh my god! Our big screen in the square is not showing ads anymore. The same words as bank were now flashing on the big screen in the square that played advertisements all day long. Someone over there is holding a banner, or is it a luminous banner? Xu Wenping smiled slightly, took Xiaoyu's hand, turned around and left, not forgetting to turn back and say to Zhang Gaoji, I'll have someone send you the money for the fireworks later, and thank you for your fireworks show tilde. Stop. Stop. A big square screen, does that mean you win? You are clearly cheating. Zhang Gaoji was muttering in the ears of Xu Wenping and Yu Youling, but the two of them looked relaxed and at ease. Yu Youling leaned on Xu Wenping's shoulder and walked slowly. They followed the Lamborghini all the way to the side, and waited for Xu Wenping and Yu Youling to get in the car. The latter and a group of curious people who followed behind were all dumbfounded. This. Mr. Zhang, it seems that in terms of mounts, he is a little stronger than you. Is this powerful? Are you comparing the Mercedes-Benz E300 and the Lamborghini Veneno? Hurry, hurry, watch the video. At this moment, all the floating screens in Jinhai City that could light up changed to wishing Xiaoyu peace, happiness, and everything goes well. This included the big screens in all the big squares, the slogans on the mobile vehicles, and all the lights in the buildings were turned off and replaced with this slogan. Mr. Zhang had an expression of disbelief on his face. He watched the short video and didn't believe it at all. He hurriedly drove his car to watch it in person. Along the way, it seemed as if the entire city had come to a halt, even the big supermarkets had stopped doing business, and a series of slogans were lit up. When Zhang Gaoji stepped into the city center and felt a little limp, he looked up and saw that the night sky of the entire Jinhai city seemed to be lit up by a canopy, and a large number of fireworks shot up into the sky. At this moment, the slogans began to gradually fade away. The fireworks illuminated the entire Jinhai city brightly. At this moment, Xu Wenping and Yu Youling have already stepped onto the top floor of the Howard Plaza Hotel. There are fireworks in the sky, roses all over the floor, and the bay windows on all four sides offer views of the entire city. Come, cut the cake. Looking at the palm-sized cake in front of her, which was made into the shape of a little bear's face, Yu Youling chuckled and said, why are you so stingy when buying a cake? Hee hee. We should be pragmatic. If we can't finish the food, won't it be a waste? Light a candle and make a wish. At this moment, Yu Youling felt that she was the happiest person in the world.